Hello. Welcome to my channel Touching Stories. You're about to hear an amazing story about love and unexpected decisions. Enjoy watching.
The major ridiculed the girl, and after a while, life turned so that he sobbed on his knees at her feet. Ever since she was a little girl, Lucy didn't know what rejection was. She always had everything, whatever she did not ask her parents from the first time received. The girl's father was an entrepreneur, well known in the city. He did everything well, so the money was flowing. Lucy was the only child in the family. "Daughter, are you ready?" her mother asked her. They were going to kindergarten. "Yes," screamed the girl. She had a lot of friends, all of them she could at any time invite them to visit. No one was against it. "Today we'll go to kindergarten, and tomorrow we'll go to the movies," her mother told her on the way. They did that every weekend. The family lived outside the city. When the father had time, he took them by car, but more often, mother and daughter walked. The woman didn't work anywhere. She was a housewife, so she had a lot of free time and could do things with her daughter. "Mommy, will we go to the store in the evening?" the girl asked her. "Sure," smiled back at her mom. In kindergarten, the girl liked it. She never hooliganized, obeyed the teachers. It was her last year in kindergarten. "Well, how did my daughter behave today?" Her mom came to pick her up in the evening. "Oh, wonderful," the teacher told her. "Everyone would be like that. You're my clever girl." Her mother stroked her head. After that, they packed their things and, as the woman had promised in the morning, went shopping. "Buy me this toy." Lucy asked her mother for a big elephant. "Where are you going to get so many of them?" Mom didn't refuse, but she would have bought something else with pleasure. "Mommy," her daughter looked at her with such eyes that it was impossible to refuse. "Okay, give us this elephant," said the woman to the seller. After that, the happy daughter walked with the huge elephant through the streets. She saw other children looking at her, so she was very grateful to her mommy. At home, they did various activities. Her mommy taught her to embroider, to draw, because she herself had a craving for it. Earlier, one of the walls was filled with paintings, which were made by women's hands. Now there were others that had been embroidered or painted by the girl. "Lucy, read me this fairy tale," her mother used to tell her before she went to bed. "It's not right. It's the mother who should read fairy tales to the child, not the child to the mother," she laughed loudly. Thus, Mom wanted to accustom her daughter to reading and interest in books. It was possible not to go to kindergarten in the summer, but Lucy herself insisted on it. Mom did not oppose it. "Well, Hal, there are friends there," said the girl. Yes, I do not argue with you." Mom was not at all against it, because during the day, while no one was at home, she was doing her own thing. Summer flew by quickly, and here, Arinka went to the first grade. From the very first day, the teacher liked her for her diligence, clean uniform, beautiful bows. All pens and notebooks were folded neatly. "Arishka, sit at the first desk," she said to her when they came to the classroom after the line. "Thank you." She sat down and folded her hands on the desk. From that day on, school began. Just like in kindergarten, the girl tried to do everything the teacher assigned. She glued, molded, drew, wrote, read, and at the same time, practically did everything alone. "Maybe you need some help." Her mom came up to her in the evening. "No, I've already done everything here. Look." She handed her notebooks to her. "Oh, what a clever girl you are." The woman admired her. The father was not at home more and more. He was busy with work, but no one blamed him for that, because he did everything for his girls. So passed year after year, and here, already the girl began to study in the middle school. "Lucy, what do you want to be?" her mother often asked her. "I don't know. If they paid good money for it, I would become an artist," she said. "Why not give it a try?" Lucy had already been going to art school for 3 years. "I don't even know, but it's too early to tell," she reasoned sensibly. In the evenings, she mostly painted pictures or still lifes. "Why don't you go out with your friends?" Mom wondered. "I do not know, as it does not want to. They have only nonsense in their heads," said her daughter. "And what?" I wondered. "Stupidity in their heads?" Was interested in Mom. "Different. I don't want to talk about it." Lucy went on with her work. When she was already in 9th grade, she decided for sure that she would choose the profession of an artist. Perhaps she would start teaching other kids to draw, and if she went, she would paint to sell, which is what she was aiming for. Wasting time on the 10th and 11th grade did not want to, so after the end of the 9th grade, Lucy entered the Cudrath in the school, which was located in their city. Daughter, are you sure you decided to connect your life with this profession? Mom and Dad were worried about her because they knew that this is not a lucrative profession, and the artist is unlikely that in his lifetime will sell paintings. With my years, I'll do it, and if it does not go, there is still time to retrain, she replied. Well, as you know, Mom knew that with her daughter to argue useless, if she decided something that decided, it will do it to the end. It was easy at school. Lucy knew and understood everything for a long time. She knew about paints, canvases, brushes. They often went on plein airs. On one of them, Lucy met Max. Hi, he came up to her. Hello, she broke away from her work. I'm Max. He held out his hand to her. Lucy, she smiled and shook it. What year are you in? He sat down next to her. Third, she smiled modestly. I'm in second. He moved his easel closer to hers and they began to paint together. What do you do in the evening? He asked unobtrusively. I don't know, I work, she shrugged. And what is your work? The guy asked. Many people order me portraits to give to their loved ones or parents, and I also design banners, she answered and laughed. She was interested. It was the first time a young man had approached her. If they approached her, they were interested in her personally, not in her work. Maybe we can go somewhere, he suggested to her. And where to? She was curious. She liked the guy too. I don't know, there's a cafe in town. Maybe there, he looked at her. Okay, for the first time in her life, Lucy was going on a date. Then I'll wait for you there after 7 o'clock tonight, Max said and continued drawing. Lucy, where are you going? Her mother asked her in the evening when she saw that her daughter had changed more than one outfit. Going on a date, she said, her cheeks flushed. What date? You didn't tell me anything about it. Mom was very surprised. Today I met a young man at the plein air. His name is Max. He invited me to a cafe, which recently opened in our city, she began to tell me, and she was trying on earrings. But wow, what news, the woman rejoiced. She went to her room and returned a few minutes later. Here, look, she opened her hand in which there was a pearl necklace and earrings. Mom, these are your favorites, her daughter looked at her. It's okay. I think it's just right for a first date, modest and tasteful. The woman knew a lot about jewelry. Lucy put on the black dress, the necklace and earrings her mother had given her, and let her hair down. It was dark in color. The voluminous hair fell to her shoulders. It was very beautiful. Well, how do you like me? Asked the daughter to her mother. Just beautiful, she said. Lucy, in a good mood, went to the cafe, where a young man was waiting for her. When she got there, the time was already 8:30. The girl entered the room and immediately saw him. Max, she went up to him. Lucy, I thought you weren't coming, he said to her, stood up, and pushed back a chair for her to sit down. I didn't calculate the time for the road. We live outside the city. I walked here, she began to tell him. The main thing is that you came. It's nothing. The waiter brought their order before the girl could look at the menu. Wow, that speed, she looked at him. You apologize for my impudence, but I've already made an order. There were 2 salads on the table, as well as 2 glasses of champagne. That's okay, it's my favorite salad, she smiled. She enjoyed spending time with this guy. First of all, he was cute, she liked him, and secondly, their tastes matched. You probably have a lot of suitors, he told her and was embarrassed. What are you saying? I went on a date with you for the first time, she also blushed. Wow, and where have you been hiding your beauty? And he covered her hand with his hand. Max, she pulled it out and lowered her eyes. What's the big deal? He didn't understand. I think it's too early on a first date to have tactile contact, was her opinion. Okay, whatever, no touching, the guy shrugged. They continued to sit, looking at each other, talking. After a well-spent evening, Max offered to walk the girl home. She did not refuse. Wow, how far you live. They kept walking and walking along the road. In general, we have a car, but my mom and I rarely use it. Most of my dad drives it. And when he's on his way with us, he can give us a ride, Lucy told him. All understood. The boy was silent. When they reached the girl's house, he whistled as he looked at the 2-story structure. Wow, what a big house you live in, he said in admiration. Come on, it's not my fault. It's my father's, she told him. But it's your father, the guy said. It was obvious he was trying to pretend he wasn't jealous. That's it, bye. She grabbed the doorknob. Will we meet tomorrow? He asked her, and he stood there thinking that she wouldn't be friends with a beggar. At school, of course we'll meet, she laughed. He didn't want to leave until he found out if she'd go out with him or not. Are you asking me out on another date? She questioned him. Why not? And then another, and another, and another. He was happy. Okay, I agree. Just let's make a deal. Go for a walk right after school so I don't have to go home and then walk back to the city, she suggested to him. I agree to everything, Max quickly agreed. The boy turned around, said goodbye, and went home. Lucy went into her place as well. How did it go? Her mother asked her from the doorstep. She looked at the woman with such eyes that she realized that her daughter had fallen in love. The next day, Lucy didn't go to school as usual. She usually wore jeans, a sweater, and sneakers. But today she was wearing a beautiful dress. Her hair was braided, and she still had the same pearl earrings in her ears. Lucy, she heard someone calling her, looked up and saw that it was Max. Hi, she waved at him. Wait, he caught up with her, and they walked into the building together. So, how are you feeling? She asked the guy. Great, he told her. Then, before meeting up after couples, they parted near the auditorium where she was supposed to have class. Yeah. Come on, she was pleased that the guy was paying so much attention to her. All day she was in an uplifted mood, and after classes were over, she walked out of the college and immediately saw him. Max, she shouted. Yes, hi, I'm waiting. He looked at her with loving eyes. They met, held hands, and walked. Lucy liked walking with the young man, she smiled. So what shall we do? He turned to her. I don't know, suggest. She trusted him. Initially suggest we go for a walk in the park. He looked at the girl. I won't say no, she laughed. They headed towards the park. There were various rides. You could shoot at the shooting range, which was the first thing they did. Max took a long time aiming at the target and eventually won a big bear for Lucy. Oh, thank you. No one has ever done anything like that for me, she hugged the toy. We'll be the third one with us. He was glad he had managed to do it. After that, they went to the Ferris wheel, sat in a booth. It was very scary and fun at the same time. After riding on the wheel, they went to an ice cream parlor, made an order, and sat talking for a long time. They enjoyed the treat. Why did you choose me? The girl asked him. I don't know, he shrugged, and it was true. I never dated anyone before. I didn't even have a friend. I was at home all the time, studying, being with my parents, and now, she looked up at him and smiled. And now you will be together with me, he finished the phrase for her. It turns out that way. She folded her hands in front of her. It was obvious that the girl was very worried. What are you going to do on vacation? Max asked her. I haven't thought about it yet, but usually I go to the nature and transfer some beautiful views to paper. She began to tell him what she had done last summer. Well, that's a great idea. He didn't mind drawing either. The more they talked to the guy, the more she blushed and was embarrassed by him. What are you so shy about? He tried the attempt to put his hand on hers again. I don't know, I'm usually easy to get along with people, but with you, it's like this, she admitted honestly. Usually it should be the other way around. The more people communicate, the more they get to know each other and the shyness goes away. He really liked this girl. But I have it like this, she averted her eyes to the side. Well, of course, it takes time to get to know each other, he told her. That day, they stayed in the park until the evening. And then, as yesterday, Max went to see Lucy home. Would you come to visit? She asked him today. Isn't it early? He was surprised. I'll introduce you to your parents, and then it will be seen. She wanted to show the guy to her mom. I don't mind, the guy answered her. They entered the gate. Lucy, is that you? They heard in the hallway. Yes, Mom, I'm not alone, she warned her, so that the woman, God forbid, did not say anything unnecessary. And with whom? Mom came out of the kitchen. Hello, looked at her young man. You must be Max, she guessed. Yes, my name is Max, he smiled his sweetest smile. And I, Veronica. Come in, she invited the children into the kitchen. They came in and sat down at the table. Are you going to have dinner? Veronica asked them. Probably not, but we'll have tea. Lucy looked at Max. Yes, I agree, he confirmed. They sat in the kitchen until their father came home. Oh, I see we have company. He came into the kitchen. Yes, Lucy brought a friend to introduce us. His wife approached him. Great, said the man, and walked over to the young man. Max, he held out his hand. Tony, he said, and shook it. It's a pleasure to meet you, the guy said to them. And you and me. They all sat down at the table. The evening was going well. They talked, learning about each other, who, where from, why they came, who the parents were, and everything else. Well, Max, we invite you to visit. You can come to us every night. Lucy and his parents saw him off. Thank you, he told them. When he opened the door, Lucy decided to go out with him and walk him to the gate. Your parents are good, the young man told her. I know that myself, she laughed back. They walked up to the gate, stopping. Max, you know, we've only been talking to you for a couple days, but it feels like a couple years, she giggled. You wouldn't believe it. I have the same feeling, he told her. Max grabbed the handle of the gate and was about to open it when Lucy came over and kissed him gently on the cheek. He grabbed the spot and turned to her. His eyes widened. I'm sorry, she was embarrassed. No, you're not. Yesterday, when you wouldn't let me put my hand on yours, I thought it would be a long time before I got to do that. He wrapped his arms around her. They stood like that for a few minutes, and then Max kissed her cheek too, opened the gate, and went home. Lucy stood looking after him. She was pleased. She realized that she was beginning a serious relationship with the boy. How did it go? Her mom asked her when she got back to the house. It was fine, she told her mom and went to her room. Today, she wanted to draw something tender, something big, Max. She sketched some lines on the paper that made an abstract image of a young man holding a heart. Lucy dreamed of a future with Max and believed that everything would be all right. The next day, as she was walking to her studies, she saw him. What are you doing here? She didn't understand. I wanted to meet you, he honestly admitted. Understandably, the girl realized that their relationship was becoming more serious every day. Together, they came to the educational institution. On the way they talked, Lucy told what her mom told her about him yesterday. Max was happy that nothing bad was said about him. The boy and the girl started dating. Now, no one was shy of anyone anymore. After studying, they went for walks. Often after the walks, they came to visit Lucy. Everything was very good. After Lucy finished the 4th year, she had to enter the institute. During the summer vacation, Max offered her to go on vacation to the south. Max, do you have a driver's license? Lucy's father asked him when they were discussing the vacation at their home. I do. Why do you ask? The boy was surprised. You could take the car and go on vacation in it to make it more convenient for you, he said. It's uncomfortable. The guy was embarrassed that complete strangers just trust him with their car. Uncomfortable to sleep on the ceiling, grinned the father. Max agreed, tucked him under the table girl. Together they were almost a year and a half, knew each other well, so they trusted. Well, okay, if you ask, he looked at his favorite. That's fine, Veronica. Do you want to go with them, or do you not want to take her with you? Tony couldn't take his wife himself, but if his daughter and her friend took her along, he wouldn't mind her spending some time on vacation. Why don't we? We'll take her. Lucy looked at the young man. Of course we will. He had nothing against it. The women began to pack their things, of which they had taken a great deal. After that, they all got into the car, said goodbye to their father, and drove off. The way lay through many cities of the United States, in each of which Max, Lucy, and Veronica stopped. They took pictures, visited some sites, and drove on. It was fun in the car. The young people told stories and sang songs. Although the road took a lot of days, but these days remained unnoticed because there was always something to do. Had anyone thought about lodging? Veronica suddenly remembered. Yes, we called when we were still in our town, agreed, and rented a house, said her daughter. Great, then let's go there. I would like to take a shower. It was obvious that the woman was a little tired. They arrived at the place where they were to spend the next 2 weeks. The young ones checked into one room, the mother into another. They started unpacking and agreed to meet in the courtyard by the pool in the evening. Well, shall we make a plan? What we will do in the next 2 weeks? Veronica asked the children. Yes, what can be a plan? The sea, the sun, the beach, vacation. That's the whole planet, said the young people. I did not argue with you. Okay, the woman was only in favor. In the evening, they walked through the local stores, went to a small cafe, bought some homemade wine, and returned to their yard. How nice it is here. Veronica sat down on a comfortable armchair that stood here. Max poured wine into glasses and brought them to the table. There was also cut watermelon, melon, lay other fruits. The family wanted to fry meat, but no one felt like doing anything this evening. All right, we'll put off the shashlik for tomorrow, Max said in a businesslike manner. No one is hungry today, the women agreed with him. The wine was very tasty, but after a couple of glasses, it wore out the vacationers, and everyone went to their rooms. What shall we do tomorrow? Max whispered to Lucy when they were going to bed. Oh, let's think about it tomorrow. She didn't feel like talking. The next day in the morning, they went to the sea because it was not hot, and before lunch they wanted to go home. Veronica was everywhere, unstoppable with them. Of course, at first it embarrassed her, but then the young ones convinced the woman that she was not disturbing anyone. They had plenty of time and at night to talk to the two of them. Only then did the woman calm down. After 3 days in the South, Max called Lucy for a ride around the city and beyond. You won't be offended if I don't go with you. The mother came out to them. Of course not, rest up, Max told her. They drove through the city, saw what it was like here, and afterward drove outside of it. With an artist's eye, they saw how beautiful it was, and they wanted to see something that they would immediately want to put on paper. Look how beautiful it is there, Lucy showed him in the distance. It was almost sunset, and it was really beautiful on the horizon. They drove there, and on the bridge the boy lost control. Ah, screamed Lucy, and that was the last thing the guy heard. He tried to turn the wheel, but he couldn't do it. They smashed through the bridge railing and the car went flying down. Lucy, 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 Lucy. He was rubbing her shoulders, but the girl was unconscious. His legs were jammed up himself, and he couldn't do anything. Someone must have seen it happen, because after a while, various services arrived, ambulance, police. It took a long time to get Max out of the car, just like Lucy. They were both taken to the local hospital. The girl was unconscious, and from there the guy called Veronica and told her what had happened. It was very scary and bitter to realize that everything was bad. Where's my daughter? What's wrong with her? A disheveled woman ran into the hospital. Calm down, she's in intensive care. The doctor stopped her. Lucy was indeed in intensive care. Her spine was damaged and the bones in her legs were shattered. Max, on the other hand, had more minor fractures, a broken knee, and a few sprains in his other leg. Max, how did this happen? His mother sobbed on his shoulder. I don't know, we were cut off by a car. I started to turn the steering wheel since we were on the bridge. I couldn't control it, and we fell down, he said. In fact, his temples were throbbing. He realized that he should not have taken that car because he had not sat behind the wheel for a long time. But what was the use of waving his fists now that the fight was over? The guy lay on the bed, tears flowing from his eyes. No one knew exactly what had happened to Lucy. All the diagnoses were made at random. But when a few weeks passed, it was clear that the girl's spine was damaged seriously and that she would not walk in the near future. So it is absolutely certain. Beloved, forgive me, sat Max beside her bed. He himself was in a cast, but could move quietly on crutches. Don't worry about me too much, the girl told him. How can I not worry if it's all my fault, he told her. It could happen to anyone. Lucy lay on the bed immobilized on her back and looked at the ceiling. Love, I'm going to say a terrible thing. You want to judge me for it. You want to do whatever you want, but I have to go home. He saw the girl's eyes widen, but she didn't say anything to him. Only tears flowed from her eyes. I will not leave you. I will help you financially, Max told her, but he did not look at her. It's okay, she only answered him. When Veronica learned that Max was leaving, she did not say anything to him, just like her daughter, just looked at him when he was taken away by car. After that, mother and daughter stayed in this city for 4 more months. First, they were in the same hospital, and then they were moved to a rehabilitation center paid for by the father. The doctors did what they could with her, but nothing could be done. Lucy never got back on her feet. And then they moved to their own town, but the lessons didn't end there. Daddy did not spare any money. He hired a rehabilitologist who came to their home, gave the girl massages. She'd had more than one surgery by then. What do you do? Her mother used to drop by. Nothing, I draw. She looked at the table, where there was a sheet of paper. Lately, Lucy's drawings were in dark colors. Some kind of circles with thorns, like wrap wire. Lucy hadn't been out for a long time. She didn't socialize with anyone. Like before, she was always at home. Daughter, you don't need to lock yourself in. You have talent. Your hands work. Your head works too. You can draw. And without getting up from the chair, though it was painful, but her mother told her. No, I can't, her mom told her. Why can't you? What's stopping you? She didn't understand. I ran out of inspiration. Her eyes were very sad. The girl was ready to cry. Do you want me to call Max? Her mom asked her. No, you don't need to call him. Let him build his life, her daughter told her. But you can't do that. You're still very young. You have everything ahead of you. My father and I will not spare any money for you to recover. The woman did not give up. Okay, Lucy has been thinking about it for a long time. I want to start a foundation. A man wrote her an email. He saw her works on the internet and now he wanted to buy one of them. And when he found out that she was disabled, he also paid her. Then the girl thought that her talent was not wasted. She will write, sell, and help sick people. I don't get it. What foundation? Her mom sat down across from her. To help people who are in the same situation as me, she put her hands on her lap. I don't mind. I'll even help you with that, she told her daughter. When her father came home in the evening, they talked it over and decided that everything was possible. The very next day, Lucy started looking for people on the internet who would agree to volunteer at her foundation. Strangely enough, many people responded on the first evening. The girl's sessions with the rehabilitator did not stop, just as she traveled to various clinics. These were both American and foreign medical centers. At home, near the exercise machine, Lucy could even stand up on her own. I am so happy for you, daughter. Her mother supported her in everything. But this support was not enough. The girl kept thinking about Max. You think about him, don't you? Often her mother sat down near the girl when she was resting, took her hand, and together they were silent. Don't bring him up, okay, her daughter asked her. Okay, we won't. The woman sighed heavily. She was in just as much pain as her daughter. 2.5 years passed after the accident. Lucy got up one morning and asked her mom to take her to the park today. There was a party there. A lot of people were there, and Lucy wanted to raise some money from people who cared. Of course we'll do it, the woman agreed with her. While Veronica was getting ready, Lucy wrote to all her helpers that today they would be present at the holiday. No one refused her. Naturally, her dad put in the first sponsorship, and they headed over to where there were a lot of people today. Hello. For the first time, Lucy met her volunteers who were already waiting for her in the square of the park. Oh, you're in a chair. I didn't expect to see her like this. Yes, what's the big deal? She didn't understand. Lucy brought with her a lot of pictures that she had painted before, and now she was ready to portray anyone, just to earn some money. No one had ever applied to her foundation. She volunteered to help those she knew needed help. And today, she knew that there was a little boy in their town who had scalded himself very badly and needed money for an operation. The plan was to raise money for it today. So, which one of you can do what? Lucy asked the helpers. I'll paint, she said to herself. Some went off to make jewelry to sell, some to make something else. Everyone was busy. Lucy collected them by the end of the evening. She wanted to see how much money they had raised today. I enjoyed working today. Not only did I bring joy to people, but it wasn't useless. The young man put a stack of money on the table. Wow, the others raised their eyebrows in surprise. I earned a little money too. Lucy put her savings on the table. When they counted it all up, it turned out that the operation, at least the first one, should be enough. It couldn't help but feel good. They'd all said goodbye, each of them promising to keep doing it. To send pictures to Lucy's website, where she could sell paintings, jewelry, and anything else the volunteers made with their own hands. And that was the end of it. Mom, can you help me? She looked back at the woman sitting off to the side. Yes, of course. Are you done yet? She approached her. Veronica took hold of the handles of the stroller, and they drove down the alley to the park exit. Look, an invalid, they heard from the side. How dare you? Veronica turned to them. On a bench sat young men. You could see that they were majors. In front of them was a small table with snacks and beer. What are you yapping about? One of them was sitting leg to leg. How dare you talk to me like that? First of all, I'm old enough to be your mother, and secondly, to laugh at an invalid. It's a sin. It's good that it didn't happen in your life. The woman was indignant to the core. Mom, let's get out of here. Lucy wanted them to leave. No way, wait, he approached them. What else did you want? The woman looked at him defiantly. Are you being rude to me? He stood and looked at the woman with insolence. Veronica compressed her lips. She rolled the stroller back and wanted to go around him, but he with a laugh blocked her way. Where are you going? The young man asked them. Please step back. We need to pass. Look Veronica in his eyes. What if we don't? He looked at his friends and smirked. It seemed like he was showing off in front of them. Go away, went the woman at him. Shay, can't you get up at all? He asked, looking at Lucy. Please, can we come through? She looked up at him. Or maybe I want you to sit with us. You collected donations today, so make it nice and I'll donate. And he and his friends began to cackle. And we don't want that. The mother was already shaking from the insolence of this man. Let's check it out. He grabbed her arm and dragged her from the chair. What are you doing? The woman screamed. Look, we look together. Aha, laughed at the girl. The guy impressed her to himself. Put her in her seat, Veronica shouted. Or what's going to happen? The major continued to laugh. Harvey, for real, put her in her place, already stood up for Lucy, his friends. And you too, look, and he, like a marionette, led her, moving his legs and pushing the girl. He laughed so hard that tears flowed from his eyes. At that moment, Lucy's father arrived at the gate. Tony, as soon as he saw his daughter being bullied, he immediately ran towards them. The man almost forcefully snatched his daughter from the hands of the guy and put her back in the chair. Bastard, how dare you do that to a disabled person? He began to reprimand him. Here, uncle, go by. Still laughed Harvey. We'll go away, but just look, laughing at other people's grief should never happen, no matter how in your life such a thing happens, said the unhappy father. Come on, get out of here, laughed the young man. Lucy, how are you doing? Her mom leaned over to her. Everything is fine, cried the girl. She was ashamed that everything happened like that, but she could not do anything. The parents brought the stroller to the car, put their daughter in it, and drove home. The car ride was silent. No one said anything. Lucy thought that she would study even more to prove to everyone that it was possible to get up even after such an accident. Hello, Lucy called the next day to the sick boy's mom. Good afternoon, said the grief-stricken mother. Yesterday at the holiday my fund flowers collected for your son a sum of money, which is enough for the first operation, said Lucy. What? We didn't come to you. The woman was surprised and amazed. Yes, but I saw that it happened and decided to help. The girl spoke kindly to her. I don't understand. You are so kind. It was heard that the boy's mother cried. Today will come one of those who will give you the money. That's the end of the conversation. After that, a lot of people found out about the local foundation. Some of them, when they heard this, Harvey had been born to mom and dad when they were in their late 40s. Of course, the boy didn't understand anything from childhood, but he knew that there was a family rich. They lived in a large house. The boy went to a private kindergarten. Whatever he wanted, he always had as a child. Mom, why don't we go on vacation? He asked the woman when school started on vacation. Why don't we go? We will, she would tell him. Everything, always and everywhere. Whatever the boy asked for, he had. When he was in the 8th grade, his dad taught him how to drive a car. By 9th grade, he had his own. He didn't want to study much, so he finished school, and after that, his dad helped him buy a diploma. So you're not going to do anything? His mom was worried about him. She realized that she and his father were not getting any younger, and her son could be left without anything. Oh, I'm fine as I am, Harvey told her. Every day he would gather friends at home. His parents provided it all. They never said anything to their son, so they had him as a spoiled young man. Harvey, if I stopped doing my business, who would carry it on? His father often sat down to talk to him. What's to continue it? You have deputies, directors. His father had a small factory, which brought a lot of profit. The guy did not think about anything at all. On his mind were only friends, drinking and partying. Girls he also went through and changed like gloves. None of them he felt any real feelings for. A scoundrel screamed to him the next passions and ran away from him. Yes, a scoundrel, but there's variety, he told her afterwards. He never felt sorry for anyone. He was ready to throw anyone in trouble. For this he was not liked by many, but friends with him did not stop. Once he was in a club with his comrades. They, as usual, sat at a table, drinking. Everything was good and fun. The guy saw a girl he liked. "Look, did you know her?" he asked his friends. "No. First time seeing her." They looked at the one their friend was pointing at. So Harvey turned on all his charm, got his money ready, and went to seduce his new acquaintance. "Hi," he shouted loudly to overpower the music. "Hi," she shouted back. "Let's go to the bar," he called out to her. They moved from the dance floor to behind the bar, sat on the stools there. Harvey immediately ordered cocktails for himself and her. Harvey introduced himself and he held out his glass to her. "Veronica," she smiled back and accepted the treat. "Are you here alone?" the young man asked her, referring to her male companion. With friends, she looked over to where she had just danced. There were 2 other girls there. "And me and my friends," he showed her to the VIP area, from where 2 young men waved to her. "Nice," she took a sip. Harvey looked at this girl and didn't understand what it was about her that got him. She seemed like an ordinary girl, like everyone else, but there was something about her that attracted him. "Let's go to our table," he called out to her. "Come on," she nodded to her friends and they followed her. Everyone at the table got to know each other, and the night was fun. When Harvey once again went to the bathroom and came back, the girls were not at the table. "Where are the girls?" he asked his friends. They said they'd gone home, and they shrugged. "Why didn't you stop them? We would have walked them home." Harvey wondered. "What? You would have walked them home?" They were surprised. It was the first time they had heard a friend say that. "I don't know why, but Veronica's got me hooked," he admitted to his friends. "And what, an ordinary girl like many?" They were surprised. "I tell you, I don't know. I'm amazed at myself." He sat down and took the glass in his hands. The next day he tried to look for the girl, but he had no luck. In the evening he went to the club again, but Veronica wasn't there. "Did you happen to take those girls' phone numbers?" Harvey asked his friends. No, they looked at each other. Usually, if they met girls at the club, it was for one night, just for fun. Harvey himself was the first to do that. "Shit, how am I going to find her?" the young man thought. From that day on, for a month, every night, he went to this club. He didn't care about any other girls, neither cocktails nor dancing. He was looking for Veronica. And now, after a month, he didn't expect anything. But when he came there, he saw her behind the bar. "Hi," Harvey quickly approached her. "Oh, hey," she looked at him. "Where have you been?" He looked at her like she was a miracle. "What do you mean?" She didn't know what he was talking about. "Then, at the club, you left. You didn't leave any phone numbers, nothing." "I only know your name. Been looking for you all this time, but couldn't find you," he told her honestly. "I didn't think you liked me that much." Veronica smiled to herself. Harvey ordered cocktails again. They sat for a while, danced, and then he invited her to walk around the night city. The girl was pleased with all this. She went with him. They wandered the streets, walked in the park, and only in the morning he walked her home. "Do you live here?" He was surprised when they reached one of the high-rise buildings. "No, I won't tell you where I live yet." She averted her eyes. "Well, okay. At least leave your phone number," he asked her. They exchanged phone numbers and Harvey went home happy. The next day, as soon as he woke up, he dialed the girl's number. "Hi," he said hello to her. "Hi," she answered him. "Shall we go out tonight?" he asked seriously. Veronica was silent for a while, then agreed. She had set up a meeting for him near the park, and Harvey couldn't wait for the evening when the meeting would take place. Tonight he'd gotten a car, and she and he had taken it for a midnight drive. "Let's go to my place," Harvey told her as they were getting ready to go home. "No, it's late. I have to go home." She didn't want to rush things. "Good," Harvey marveled to himself. Earlier he would have started kissing her right there in the car. But he didn't want to do that to Veronica. He drove her back to the same place where they'd parted yesterday and drove home. "Son, what's going on with you?" His mom asked him. "Your face is gone." "I'm fine," he said. "But I can see that it's not normal. Before you were not to be found at home, and now you come early, sitting at home sad." Sat down at the table opposite his mother. "I think I've fallen in love," he said to the most dear person. "What are you doing?" She splashed her hands. Mom had been waiting for this moment because she knew that her son could not be like this as he was before. "Yes, and this girl is different," he sighed. "What's she like?" I wanted to know more about the mother. If before I could just wave my finger at anyone and she would follow me and do whatever I wanted. This one saw that I have money and a car and I live in a good house, but whatever I told her, she all answers that let's not rush things, goes home and behaves differently than everyone else, he shared with his mother. "But not everyone is like you thought." Mom smiled to herself. She was happy that finally her son may be settling down. And indeed, he began to dress differently than before, to go to the stores, to buy some gifts, to take care of his girlfriend. "Veronica, you and I have been together for 3 months now. Maybe we should meet the parents," he suggested it. "Isn't it early?" She looked at him. "I guess not." He didn't understand what the big deal was. "All right, I'll meet your parents." Veronica did mine. Inside, Harvey was so happy. He couldn't believe that the girl had agreed. With that, they drove to his house. His mom had already been warned that he might be coming with a girl in the evening, so she was waiting for them. They went to the kitchen, sat down at the table. The father was not at home, but the mother was busy in the kitchen. "What are you doing, Veronica?" she asked her. "I was studying. Now I'm on vacation," the girl said. It was clear. The woman saw that she did not want to talk to her. Mom prepared everything and left the kitchen, did not disturb the young people. "Why don't we go to my room?" Harvey asked her for good luck. "Let's go, but not today," was unapproachable Veronica. They sat a little longer. The father never returned, and the girl got up and said she had to go home. Harvey drove her, came back. Her mom had already cleared everything off the table. "So what did you think of her?" the guy asked her. "I don't know. You have to live with her." Mom was happy on one hand. "I don't know either. I fell in love like a juvenile fool. It had never happened to me before, and now I can't help thinking about her even for a minute," he honestly told his mother. Their meetings continued for another 6 months, but the girl still did not let not come closer to himself, nor kiss, nor do anything. Whatever Harvey did, she either did not perceive or she did not like it. "Will you marry me?" One day they met in the park. "What?" She looked at him. "Didn't you hear what I asked you?" He stood there, his eyes downcast. "I heard, but isn't it a bit early?" It seemed like Veronica didn't want to socialize with this man at all. "I don't know what else I can do for you. I love you more than anyone else in the world, and I am ready to do anything for your sake, even this step," he honestly admitted. "Okay, I'll think about it," she replied. "Maybe we could go to a restaurant and celebrate," Harvey suggested. "Okay," I agreed. Veronica smiled and got into the car. They arrived at the restaurant, where a table was already booked. "You assumed, yes, that I would agree," she guessed. "Well, how without it?" The guy didn't know where to put his hands. It was the first time he had such excitement. When the waiter brought champagne and hors d'oeuvres, Harvey pulled a ring out of his pocket and handed the box to Veronica. "Harvey, you're so good," she looked at him. "Veronica, I love you so much." He took her hands in his. No one recognized what had happened to the young man. He withdrew from his friends, no longer went out at night, spent all his time with his girlfriend, and she was unapproachable. When they applied to the registry office, Veronica called him for a walk. They sat on a bench. She took his hand and looked into his eyes. "Do you want to tell me something?" he guessed. "Yes," she answered. "Speak, I'm listening to you." Harvey thought to himself the worst, that now she would refuse him, go away, and they would never see each other again. "Harvey, why do you think you've never seen my parents and don't know where I live?" "Because I was raised in an orphanage, and I live with 2 other girls. We rent an apartment." Now she wasn't looking at him. "What's the big deal? I've got a big house, plenty of room for everyone." He was surprised that she couldn't tell him the truth about herself from the beginning. "I didn't want you to think I was into you for the money or the house or anything like that." She twiddled her thumbs. "Silly girl," he hugged her, and so they sat like that for a long time. It seemed to Harvey that he was the happiest man in the world, for the one he loved so much had agreed and opened herself to him. He had already imagined what kind of wife she would be, how they would live together, and everything else. "I didn't expect you to take it all so well." Veronica hugged her chosen one for the first time. Preparations for the wedding began. Harvey's parents supported their children in everything. They spared no expense on a dress for the bride and also bought a suit for the groom. The restaurant, the guests, the groceries, everything was taken care of by the father as usual. "I didn't even expect it to be like this," Veronica said to her future husband. That's not all. He did not like the soul in the one he chose as his wife. Now friends who came to visit them saw a completely different person, not the Harvey they knew before. Everyone helped with everything. No one was left out. If it was necessary to buy groceries, Harvey only had to ask some friend and he would bring the groceries. The girls also helped Veronica with the preparations for the wedding. Harvey wanted to make the best holiday for his girlfriend. "Why are you spending so much? A simple painting would be enough for us," she told him. "You are the best girl in the world, and you deserve a good party," he told her. "You're so good, though I didn't think so at first," she told him back. The wedding was to take place at the end of the summer, and everyone was looking forward to it. "How many guests will you have?" the mother asked her son. "How many will not be all ours?" he laughed in response. "Son, have you ever thought that you need to get a job somewhere because you will have to provide for the family?" she said to him. "No, I haven't thought about it yet," he honestly admitted. In fact, he had thought about getting a job with his father, at least to see what they do there. But he was so used to doing nothing that he didn't want to. Veronica had to study for another year, so he didn't even count on her. "Move in with me," he told her the next time he saw her. "I'll get married, then I'll move in," she told him. "Why do you keep stalling? Are you afraid of me?" he wondered. "I'm not afraid of you. I just do everything by the rules. The bride and groom must live in separate houses," she said. "I don't understand it, Harvey." Though he had been decent lately, sometimes the old young man he used to be woke up in him. All the time he and Veronica had been dating, they hadn't even kissed once, let alone more. That's why the guy was nervous sometimes. A week before the wedding, he started having some anxiety. He didn't know what was going on. "Harvey, calm down," his mom told him. "I cannot. This is a very serious step." Now he fully realized that in a few days he will be unfree. He would have to be responsible not only for himself, but also for his family. And now the day had come. Friends, girlfriends, redemption, registry office, restaurant. Congratulations, it was like a fog. The young sat at the table, but it seems that Harvey without wine was drunk with happiness. After that, in the house of the groom's parents, half was allocated for the accommodation of the young. At one time, Veronica was shy about doing anything there, because two hostesses could not be in the kitchen. But then she saw that Colin's mother was not so young anymore, and it was difficult for her to do all the housekeeping. She began to help her with everything, and Harvey at the same time began to go to work with his father. He wasn't exactly young, but he didn't know much about life. "Well, why are you so armless?" sighed father. He realized that he cannot do much and that soon it will be time for him to retire, and there is no replacement for him. "It was you who made me like this," said his son. "Since childhood, you have not taught me anything. You paid money for everything, hired specialists, bought a diploma, so I have not learned anything." It was hard to realize that. "At least you got a good wife," my father sighed. Toward New Year's Eve, everything was fine. They were going to celebrate the family holiday. "Harvey, did you buy Veronica a present?" his mother asked him. "No, I'll give her the money and let her buy it herself," he said. "It's nicer to get a surprise than to choose one for yourself," she advised him. Harvey wanted to work for his father, but he never learned anything, and he still took money from the common purse. At the holiday table on New Year's Day sat 4 people: Harvey, his wife, and his parents. "Well, first Mom started talking. I want to give you a present." "You?" Her husband stared at her. Veronica looked at her husband while her mother left the table, went to the dresser, and came back. "My children, I see that Veronica is not quite comfortable living with us in the same house, so we consulted and decided to buy you an apartment." She handed the keys to her son. "Mom," he looked at her. Yes, yes, don't ask anything. Move in and live. She sat back down. Everyone was happy. And I have a New Year's present for you too, Veronica told them. And what is it? The parents were surprised because they realized that the girl was studying. She could not give them anything that would surprise them very much. Harvey, you will soon be a daddy and you will be grandparents, she announced to them, and put a pregnancy test on the table, which had 2 red stripes on it. Veronica, the mother, jumped up from her seat and began to hug her daughter-in-law. Beloved, Harvey looked at her with big eyes. I was already thinking we wouldn't live to see this moment, muttered the woman. I am happy. The husband's father got up and also hugged his daughter-in-law. No one had words. They sat and looked at the girl, and the girl at them. From that day, Harvey and Veronica moved into their own apartment. Though the girl was studying, she had time for a lot of things. She arranged the coziness of the house, did everything for her husband so that he was always fed and fed. You are the best thing that could happen to me in life, he told her. And you with me, she would hug her husband. Harvey still traveled to his father's factory. He was the youngest technician there, but that didn't embarrass him. He was different now than he had been a few years ago. Oh, Veronica clutched her stomach in the evening. It's still early. Harvey was afraid. I don't know. She looked at him with eyes so big and frightened that the young man's hands shook. He didn't know what to grab onto. Quickly, he grabbed his car keys, the bag he had prepared just in case, and they quietly went downstairs. His wife was sitting up, only screaming in the backseat. Be patient, love. They were at the hospital in half an hour. The doctors immediately picked up the girl and led her away. Harvey was left alone in the hallway. He didn't know what to do. He sat in the chair, then called his parents. What's the matter with you? His mother was worried. Can I come to you? He asked her. Why do you ask? Come in everything. She was worried too. The young man did not know whether to leave the hospital, but at the last moment decided that he had nothing to do here. When everything happens, his wife will call and report it. Or maybe it's just false labor because the due date is still a month away. Well, how are you? A woman asked him when he arrived at his parents' house. I don't know. He went to the kitchen. His mom poured him some soothing tea. As he sat in the kitchen and drank the tea, his phone rang. What? He shouted into the receiver. His mother looked at her son with big eyes. What's going on there? She realized it was the maternity hospital calling. They're calling me. Veronica's not well, Harvey said in a lifeless voice. So why are you sitting there? Go, she sent him. Harvey couldn't drive himself. His father drove him, and when they arrived at the maternity hospital, something terrible was going on. Doctors were rushing around, and at one point a doctor ran up to Harvey, grabbed him by the arm, and dragged him along. Your wife just gave birth and is dying of blood loss, she told him on the way. What, like dying? He didn't believe what the woman was saying. But when they were in the ward, Veronica was already unconscious. She was transferred to the intensive care unit. The young mother never regained consciousness. 2 days later, she was gone. All this time, Harvey was in the hospital, his father by his side. When they were informed of the death of his daughter-in-law and wife, the father felt bad. He lost consciousness. Help, was frightened son. That now also will lose a parent. Immediately, the doctors came running. They put the man on a gurney and took him away. Mom did not know what to do. Harvey. He did not say anything to the woman, afraid that she will become bad from what he heard. What's wrong? She kept asking. But 40 minutes later, the woman was here too. Veronica died. He looked at his mother with empty eyes. What? Where's the baby? She got very agitated. He's all right, cried Harvey. After that, the son went to the doctors and asked to be sedated. The mother was not so young, so the son was afraid to talk to her about further. He brought water, pills, and after the mother drank it all, he took her hand and told her about his father. Even after taking a sedative, the woman did not take the information well. I need to go to him, the woman said. At that moment, the doctor came out into the corridor. He looked at the people who were sitting in the corridor, approached them. What you say? The woman felt something wrong. Your husband and father are also gone. We did everything we could. He waved his hands. Mom, Harvey screamed. I'm all right. She was a woman and therefore strong. Realized that there was a small child left in her arms and no one to deal with him. And what do we do now? Harvey covered his eyes with his hands. Nothing can be done now. You need to live on. Looked at one point of the woman. There were so many thoughts in her head that she could not keep track of them all at once. A few days later, they took the child from the hospital. It was a boy who was named John. The father's body was also given to them at once, but Veronica was left behind. An autopsy was to be held to find out what the woman had died of. Harvey, take care of John, his mother told him, because she had to take care of the funeral, to do everything. She couldn't do it alone, and he was depressed. He didn't want anything, and he didn't need that child. His favorite woman died because of him. He just hated it. Harvey got up, got dressed, and went to his apartment. "Where are you?" His mother called him. "I'm home," he told her calmly. "Why are you home when you have so much to do?" She didn't understand him. I do not need this child. Give him to the orphanage," he told her calmly. "What are you saying? This is your son and my grandson. I cannot give him away. You will betray Veronica," she told him. But Harvey didn't listen. He took a bottle from the bar, and now he wanted only one thing: to get drunk and forget himself. The woman hired people to bury her husband and daughter-in-law. She also paid money for a woman to babysit John. Harvey was all this time unknown where he was, unknown with whom, and unknown what he was doing. A month after all this happened, Harvey came to his mother's house. "Come in," she looked at him. He was all thin and gaunt, black bruises under his eyes. "I don't want to live," he told her. "Come and look at John. Your son is very much like you. You must live for him now," she told him. The father walked into the room. He looked at his child. He hated him. One had to get used to living alone, but how to do it, no one knew. And 6 months later, another difficulty began. My father's companion, who had half of the shares of the plant, said that he was taking over the management of the plant. By what right? Half of the shares inherited by his mother. Could not understand Harvey. "No, not half. I own 51%, and your mother only 40%, the companion told him. "When did that happen?" Harvey didn't understand. He'd always thought his father owned the plant. "A long time ago, I bought the shares from some of the employees," he told him. Harvey realized that they were losing their plant, and what to do now was not clear at all. And since he did not understand anything about this production, he could not work there. Everything was sad, and it was unknown what to expect from the future. "Mom, let's sell the apartment," her son told her. "Yes, I agree with your proposal, because we have practically no means of subsistence," she told him. First, they sold the apartment, then the shares of the factory. Now they had only the house left. The mother and Harvey did not work anywhere. When the boy turned 3, it became clear that he was not in good health. They took him for a checkup, and the doctors were just throwing up their hands. When they took a pluck from him for histology, it turned out that he was developing a terrible disease. "If something is not done in the next year, then, most likely, we will not be able to save the boy," the doctor said. "What is it? Why is it so bad?" Harvey asked his mother. "I don't know," she sighed. From that moment on, the woman and her son began to look for ways out of the situation. They didn't know who to turn to, who to ask, or what to do. In winter, the woman's heart became bad. They had to call an ambulance, and she was taken to the hospital. "Please, just don't go," Harvey asked her. "Sonny, I'll do everything I can," and she cried. Harvey realized that now he was left alone with his troubles, and what to do. The man did not know at all. He started surfing the internet, looking for a solution to the problem. At some point, he came across a fund that was in their city that could help and raise money for the operation. "Hello," he dialed the number that was listed on the website. "Good afternoon, the Flowers Foundation welcomes you," a female voice answered him. "Can I come to you?" he asked. It was the last instance to which the inconsolable father could turn. "Yes, of course. What is your problem?" asked on the other end. "I'll tell you everything when I get there," he promised. Harvey quickly packed and drove to where he was expected in an hour. On the way, in his head, he was running through what and how he would tell. The man did not like to ask, but now it was necessary. He drove up to the building, sat in the car for a long time, and then got out of it and headed for the entrance. He entered one of the offices. There was a woman sitting at the desk. He walked through and sat across from her. "Hello," he looked at her and waited to see what she would ask him. "Greetings. Lucy recognized the man immediately. She felt a twitch. "I would like to ask for your help," he said, and lowered his head. "And yet there is justice," she smiled, though she didn't know what had happened or who needed help. "I don't get it," he stared at her. "Of course, you don't remember me, but I remember you well." She turned on the chair to the window. "Yes, I don't remember you." He looked at the hostess of this foundation. "We study or work together somewhere." "No," she turned back to him. "Where did you meet then?" He needed to know now. "Does this remind you of anything?" She pointed to the wheelchair. "No, should it?" He thought about it. "Your name is Harvey and you're the local bigwig," Lucy told him. Not for a long time now, he realized this woman must be from his past life. Ah, and when had things changed? She eyed him with a sneer. Many years had passed since Lucy had last met Harvey. In that time, a great many changes had taken place in the girl's life. She'd had a lot of work with doctors. She had traveled abroad. She had metal vertebrae put in. And now she could not only stand on a support, but also move around. Without a stick or a walker, it was not very long, but with a support, almost constantly. Lucy did not give up her art. She continued to paint and sell her paintings. Often she held individual exhibitions, from which all the money was transferred to charity. Lucy lived with her parents, who still help her with everything. "Tell me straight, you asked me for money and I didn't help you." He was sitting across from her. "No, I would never ask you." She lowered her eyes. "What then? Did I deceive you and you wanted to kill yourself out of unhappy love?" He guessed. "Oh, no need to be deceived on your own account," she laughed. "Let's talk openly," he asked Lucy. "Well, remember the party in the park? I think it was City Day then," she began to remind him. "Oh, what else? I have to memorize all the holidays." Now he really thought that he had picked her up that night and then dumped her, so she remembered him. Well, if you don't remember me, why should I help you now?" She looked at him intently. "You will not help me, but my child." And he began to tell her what had happened. "Would you like me to remind you what happened with you and me?" She looked at him with a half smile on her face. "I do," he nodded. Then Lucy began to tell him how he pulled her out of her wheelchair, how he laughed at her and made fun of her in front of her friends. "I'm sorry, that wasn't me. There's a different person in front of you now." He dropped to his knees and was now looking down at her. "If it wasn't the baby that was sick, but you, I would never help," Lucy sentenced. "I'm sorry." Harvey was still on his knees. It looked like he was about to cry. "Stand up. Let's decide what to do," she said seriously. Harvey stood up. He pulled out of his briefcase all the papers he had on him, the doctor's report, the tests, and everything else. This wasn't the first time Lucy had seen something like this. She knew what had to be done. "Do you have any money?" she asked Harvey. "I could sell the house, but then I'd have nowhere to live," he said. "No, you don't need to sell the house. Let's think about something else." Lucy looked out the window. She was thinking about when and where she could organize an exhibition and what she could sell at it. "I have some antique furniture," he told her. Now, that's a different conversation. She perked up, because there was a big demand for antiques in their town too. "When and where can I spend what?" he asked her. "I have a few paintings at home, as well as volunteers who do various crafts. All this we will collect in the next few days, and I think that at the end of the month we will organize an auction," she told him. As they were about to finish their conversation, Lucy's mother walked into Lucy's office. She saw Harvey and stopped at the door. "What's he doing here?" she asked her daughter. "Mom, his son is not well. He needs help. I can't say no to a child," she said, looking at her. "You were a child too when he abused you," she reminded her. "That was a long time ago and not true," Lucy said, and closed her eyes. "But you remember him, don't you?" The woman looked at Harvey with hatred. "He who remembers the past will be put out of this sight," said the fund manager, and wrote something down on a piece of paper. She handed it to the man sitting across from her, which turned out to be her phone number. "What is it?" he asked her. "It's my direct number. Call me immediately," she told him. "Thank you." He knelt down in front of her. She then held onto the windowsill to watch Harvey walk out of the building and get into his car. He's got a car. He can sell that too," she said aloud. Harvey drove home. He called every friend he could. Some of them asked for money. Some of them lent it to him. That evening, he called Lucy. Harvey, I saw you leaving in your car today. Is it yours? The girl asked. Yes, mine, he said, and at that moment he realized what she wanted to offer him. Do you agree to sell it? She asked her question. Of course, to make amends to you and to help my son. I am ready for anything, he said in such a tone that she felt sorry for him. You don't make it up to me, you owe it to your son, she said, and remembered how badly she had felt, and her father had done everything to help her. From that day on, Harvey and Lucy became close. John was in the hospital with his grandmother, and his father was doing everything he could to help him raise money for the operation. Harvey, Lucy called him every day. She asked him how John was doing, what had been raised, and what the doctors were saying. Hi, they chatted like old acquaintances, no change yet. That's too bad. The girl knew from herself how important it was to make progress all the time, but hopefully it was still small, and the body was renewing itself constantly. Are you calming me down on purpose? He asked her. No, it was. She had already found the room where the sale would be held. Now all that was left was to set a day and bring everything there. Dad, will you help? The girl asked her father. She could solve everything on paper, but it was still as difficult for her to move around. Of course, why do you ask? Everything you do goes plus to your karma. He hugged his daughter, who had already overcome a lot. From that day on, they started to bring in furniture that Harvey had at home into one of the buildings in town. His car was also for sale. Lucy's paintings and all the crafts that had been made by her own hands were all taken to the same premises. Now all that was left to do was to wait for a certain day and sell everything. People were invited who wanted to help and were happy to do so. Worried, looked Lucy at her new acquaintance and old enemy. You know, if someone did to me what I did to you, I wouldn't help them, and you have a big heart. All right, quiet. It's starting. She put her finger to her lips. It had indeed begun. The sale was going very briskly. Some items were selling for such a price it was unbelievable. Wow, you're doing great, whispered Lucy to Harvey. Quiet, she hissed at him. After a few hours it was all over. All that was left was to count how much money had been made. What do you think? Lucy looked at Harvey. I can't even guess. He knew there was more than just cash. There's enough here for your son's operation, but there's still some left over. She smiled and Harvey came over and gave her a hug. What are you doing? She looked up at him like she did then. Lucy, you're the second person after Veronica that I respect and appreciate, he admitted. I believe you. I understand that when someone you love is sick, you'll do anything to make them feel better. Her eyes grew sad. Tell me your story, he asked her. If we keep talking, some other time, she told him. Okay, he walked around the chair, grabbed the handles, and rolled her toward the exit. The next day, Harvey called John's doctor, told him they had raised the money and were ready for the surgery. You do realize that if it's successful, the boy will need care, the doctor asked him. Of course, if earlier the man hated this child, that Veronica had died because of him, now he realized that it was the only thing left after her. Hi, Lucy had called him in the night. I didn't expect it, he told her honestly. I didn't expect it myself, but I can't stop thinking about you, she admitted to him. What will your mother say that you communicate with me no longer only about work? Grinned the man. I can't get you and your son out of my mind. Lucy realized that now she had helped them, and she might not be interested in this man anymore, but she couldn't help it. To be honest, I can't forget about you either, he said softly. Shall we meet? She suggested it. Now Harvey looked at his watch. It was the second hour of the night. Why not? She laughed. I agree anyway. John is asleep. They agreed where they would meet. Harvey left the house and went to the meeting place. Daddy, will you help me? As usual, the girl addressed him. What's the matter now? He looked at his watch too. I want to meet Harvey, she said and blushed. It is true what they say that from love to hate is one step. Only you have the opposite, laughed the man. Though he and his mother were against it, but since the girl forgave him and Harvey was not against communicating with her, they did not say anything. Hi, they met in the same park where they had an incident. Lucy, I remember everything. He came up to her. No, that's not why I called you here. She put her hands out in front of her. John is having surgery any day now. Will you be with me? He asked her. If you ask, I will. She held out her hand for him to help the girl stand up. Harvey gave her a helping hand. She rose from her chair and took a few steps towards him. Ooh, she stumbled and flew into his arms. Careful, he supported her. Sorry, she looked straight into his eyes. At that moment, Harvey pulled her close to him and wanted to kiss her, but at the very last moment stopped. I don't mind, she was ready for a kiss. You'll never forgive me, he pulled Lucy against him. I've already forgiven you. She closed her eyes and breathed in his scent. Okay, I don't mind being with you either, but let's wait until after the surgery, he asked her. Yes, I agree, because the baby's health is the most important thing right now. She sat back in her chair. Harvey had been holding her hand the whole time. Let me call a cab and walk you home, he suggested. No, my father's waiting for me over there, she pointed to the park gate. And he didn't tell you anything about coming to meet me here, the man questioned her. I think he and my mother have come to terms with my choice. She lowered her eyes and smiled. Who would have thought, when there was that situation, that it would be like this now? Harvey told her. He drove her down the alley. You don't know how much hate I had for you, she admitted to him and looked up. And I didn't even remember you. That's how it is in life. Sometimes you do something bad to a person. He remembers you in a bad word, and you don't even know about it. He regretted what he had done. Okay, let's not remember, she said. Promise me. Okay, if you insist, I promise. Harvey took her to the gate, but he didn't dare to go to the car. Aren't you coming? She asked him. No, I won't go today. Let's hang on. He nodded to the girl's father and walked in the opposite direction. A week later, the surgery was scheduled. John was taken to the regional center to have it done. Harvey and Lucy were by his side. Hi, the girl said to him. John looked at her and didn't say anything. If we're lucky, she'll be our mom, Harvey said in his ear. Mom? The boy raised questioning eyes at her. Why would you say something like that to him? Lucy liked the man, but she didn't know for sure yet if they were going to have a relationship or not. They were sitting in the hallway, holding hands. No one said anything to them. They were waiting for the surgery to be over. And then the doctor came out. Well, Harvey jumped up. You cannot worry, everything went well. Now he will be transferred to the intensive care unit. And tomorrow, if all is well, he will be in the intensive care unit, the man in a white coat told him. Harvey turned and looked at Lucy. He was happy. I congratulate you, she told him. This all happened thanks to you. I can't believe it's really true. Harvey paced back and forth in the hallway. Don't be silly. She was always happy when things went well for the people she helped. Excuse me for a minute. I need to call my mother, he said. Harvey stepped back, dialed his mom's number, told her everything that had happened. The woman was relieved. Well, thank God. At least one good news lately. Now we can die in peace, said the woman. What are you talking about? You still have to go to my wedding, said her son. What wedding? She didn't understand. Soon we will come home and tell you everything, he said, and hung up the phone. What did Mom say? Lucy smiled and looked at him. She doesn't know you, so what can she say? Harvey sat down beside her and put his arm around her. Don't you think we'd gotten on so fast? She asked him. But we've known each other a long time, he smiled and winked at her. Oh, yes, I forgot about that, she laughed. What are you going to do? Are you going to stay with me? Or are you going home? He talked to her like they were old acquaintances. I guess I'll go home. The others need my help too. I'll wait for you there. She looked at him with loving eyes. Okay, John doesn't need me today, and they won't let me in. I can walk you home. He grabbed the handles of the stroller and they went to the exit. Lucy drove home, thinking about Harvey. It had only been a little while, and they already had such a relationship between them. She really liked the man. She didn't even think he could do anything bad again. Harvey returned to the hospital. He was in the hallway waiting to be called to go see his son. Excuse me, you've been sitting here for over 24 hours, a nurse approached him. Yes, why? Is it forbidden? He asked. No, we prepared a bed for you to rest on, she said. Thank you, I could use it now, he said in a stammering voice. Harvey went to the room where he was escorted, and no sooner had his head touched the pillow than he fell asleep. He dreamed that he and Lucy were walking somewhere holding hands. She was walking on her own feet, he beside her, and John with them. Harvey woke up with a smile on his face. He didn't realize where he was at first, but then he remembered everything and sat up on the bed. The same nurse came in to see him. Are you ready to meet your son? She asked him. Yes, of course, he looked at her with such eyes that he was ready for anything now. He was taken to his son's room. He was lying with his eyes open and looking at him. His head was bandaged. "Sonny, my dear, hello. Now we will have a completely different life," he said to him and kissed him. The son took his hand and tried to smile. For 3 weeks, his father never left his side. And when they took off all the bandages and said he was fine, they were discharged home. "Are you ready to meet your mom?" Harvey told him. John was increasingly silent. He just nodded his head. They arrived home. Harvey's mom was already there. She welcomed her son and grandson with open arms. After they rested and ate, Harvey left to call Lucy. "Hi," she answered him. "You have no idea how much I missed you," he told her. "I never thought I'd be so sentimental." "Are you in town already?" she asked him. "Yes, we just got here a few hours ago." He didn't know what else to tell her. "If you don't mind, I'm coming over to say hello to John." She stopped by from afar. "Yes, of course, come over. We're both looking forward to seeing you." Was Harvey pleased to meet her? Lucy arrived at their house. Harvey met her by the gate. The woman came out too, to see who had come to see them. "Hello," Lucy said to her. "Hello." She looked at her son in surprise. "Mom, don't be surprised. Lucy had been in an accident, now not for long, but she can get up," he immediately explained to her. They were in the house. John saw a familiar woman. He went over to her when she called him. "Well, how's your health?" Lucy asked him. "Good," he nodded. "And that's wonderful," she hugged the boy. "Lucy, will you agree to be my wife?" Harvey took a ring out of his pocket. Just like that. She didn't understand. "Why drag it out? You have helped us so much. We have been without a mother for a long time. We want to have a mistress in our house," he said. Lucy cried and hugged the man. "What's the matter with you?" He didn't understand. "I do not know why you need me," she told him. "But if I become your wife, you will fulfill my most cherished wish." And what was that wish? Harvey didn't understand. After the accident, the fact that I will never walk, it was not the worst sentence. The doctor said that I will never be able to have children. And now you give me the right to have a child. She looked lovingly at the boy. "Lucy, I will only be happy about it." Harvey raised his eyes to his mother. He realized that he had done everything wrong in his life. "My dears, come into the kitchen." Their mom called them over. "Thank you." Lucy saw that this house had no thresholds, as if it had been made especially for her. "Did you notice?" He saw her look at the thresholds. "Did you do that just for me?" She was surprised. "Yes, I had to do something. It wasn't all about getting help myself." He walked over to her and they walked into the kitchen together. There the woman removed one chair from behind the table so that Lucy could drive up in her chair. "Thank you." The girl looked at her. "Why aren't your parents here?" Harvey asked. "They're outside the gate waiting." She looked up at him. "So why did you leave them there?" He did not understand, immediately got up from the table and went to the exit. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." Harvey's mother took the kettle off the stove. "It's all right, we'll explain everything to you one day." At that moment the door slammed, and in a few seconds Lucy's parents appeared in the kitchen. Everyone said hello, hugged, and whatever the relationship between Harvey and Lucy, for the sake of the children, everyone swallowed their grudges. "So are we going to be a family?" Harvey asked, sitting next to Lucy and holding her hand. "Yes," answered Lucy and looked at her mom and dad. "Children, we wish you happiness, and hopefully it won't happen again like it already did between you." Her mother looked at Harvey. "I promise you that your daughter is in the best of hands." They sat at the table for a while longer and separated. The grandmother was with John. Lucy's parents had gone home, and the young ones shut themselves in a room. "Do you want me to tell you about John's mother?" Harvey asked. "Yes," nodded the girl. After she gave her consent, he told her everything, how they had everything, what he was like, how he changed, thanks to the ordinary girl from the orphanage. Lucy looked at him and could not believe that this was really the same young man with whom she had once had a scandal. "Have you thought hard about wanting to commit to me?" she asked him. "You wouldn't believe how. It could be better," he hugged her. Lucy had not felt a man's caress for a long time, and now she felt such feelings for this man that no one could dissuade her from him. And the most important argument was John, whom in such a short time she had been able to love too. Lucy stayed at Harvey's house. "Why don't you work anywhere?" she asked him one day. You see, he told her everything as it was after her father died. And what, you sold all the stock? She wondered. Yes, he nodded and looked at his mother. They were having dinner. Why did you do that? She was amazed. We need to get a lawyer and sort this out, Lucy said. Don't mention it, Harvey's mother said. Well, if you don't want to talk about it, let's think about another case. She didn't back down. Okay, I agree to everything. He smiled, looked at his mother, and kissed his future wife. My children, I do not know what kind of relationship between you, but I can see that you love each other, approached the mom after a few months. What are you talking about? Harvey thought she was saying goodbye to them. It wouldn't be long before she hugged them both. No, you can't say that, the son was sure. Listen to me, Lucy was right. I didn't sell all the shares in my father's factory. You can take them. And rejoined there, she held her son's face. Listen to me, Lucy smiled. A couple more months passed. Harvey and Lucy had their marriage ceremony. The young man insisted that they be married in a church. You do realize that this marriage is made in heaven? His wife looked at him. I believe our meeting was originally built in heaven. He hugged her and kissed her. It's okay, he adored the girl and hugged her all the time. I am so afraid to tell you the most cherished words. Although they had been together for a long time, she could admit it. She had once been betrayed by the closest person she trusted more than herself. And now it hurts so much to think that it was all for help. You're a fool. He pulled her tightly against him. Yes, I may be a fool, but I love you very much, she said. And I love you. Harvey never left his wife's side. John loved to climb on his mother's lap, and she even took him for rides around the house. Everything seemed to be going well for them. The girls' parents were often at their house, and they became friends with Harvey's mom. Harvey, Lucy screamed one morning. What happened? He was frightened and ran out of the room. The first thing he thought was that something had happened to his wife. Mom, she was standing over the woman who was lying on the kitchen floor. What happened? He leaned over, felt for a pulse, which wasn't there. Call an ambulance, Harvey said, tears in his eyes. God, it couldn't be. Lucy didn't want anyone to die in her life. Everything happens in life. He was very sad that his mother had passed away. Hello, come quickly. She dictated the address into her phone. Harvey walked up behind her and gave her a hug. He couldn't hold back the tears. John was crying too. Your mother must have realized you were in good hands. That's why she left us, Lucy said smugly. You know how much I love you. His wife hugged him. As usual, the whole family was together. Mom was buried with her father, and they didn't have to mourn long, because a couple months after the funeral, Lucy got sick. Harvey, she woke him up in the night. What's the matter? He was frightened. I feel sick. I feel nauseous. I feel dizzy. Has it really started all over again? She told him. Now he picked up the phone, dialed the number of the ambulance. They arrived 10 minutes later. Just then Lucy's parents arrived. They were worried about her. The girl was taken to the hospital. Harvey, along with her parents, were in the hallway when the doctor came out of the room. They all stood and looked wary, waiting to see what he would tell them. Why are you looking at me like that? Who's her husband? He asked. I came Harvey forward. He was waiting for the most dreadful announcement. I congratulate you, Papa, said the doctor with a smile. What do you mean, Dad? Harvey didn't understand. A miracle has happened. Your wife is pregnant? The doctor smiled even wider. That can't be, he muttered. But it has happened, and if you take care of your wife and treat her well, in 7 months you will be the happy daddy of a second child, the doctor told him. I love you, he hugged him. Hey, be careful, the doctor pulled away from him. Can I go see her? Asked Harvey and looked at her parents. Of course you can, and she's conscious. She's just a little sick. You'll have to stay here for a couple days, the doctor allowed him, and they went straight into the room. Darling, did you hear that? He hugged her. Yes, and I don't believe it happens. She looked at him and at her parents with happy eyes. They sat in her room for a while longer, then left her to rest, said goodbye, and went home. John, well, I congratulate you. Your father has come home. With what? The boy looked at him. You're going to be a big brother soon, Harvey told him. That can't be, he wondered. The doctor just told us that, and if we treat our mom well, we'll be fine. Harvey hugged his son, and together they went to bed. 2 days passed and they all went to pick Lucy up from the hospital. All the family was happy. Do you believe it yourself? Her mother asked her. I don't know, but if the doctor says so, why not believe? She shrugged her shoulders. Does it ever happen? Harvey asked her. Look, lately I believe in everything that happens. If someone leaves this life, it means they're making room for someone else, Lucy said. So my mom left for a reason. She made room for our baby. Harvey was sure. It turns out so, she shrugged. Now parents, husband and son treated mom very reverently. They were paying attention to all the changes in her behavior and in general to everything she had been doing lately. I love you, Harvey whispered to her every day and night. God, my love, you have no idea how much happiness you have brought into my life. His wife hugged him. That's it. Let's spit so we don't jinx it. He spit over his shoulder. To ensure that everything went well, Lucy did not wait for anything, and a month before the due date of labor, she went to the hospital. Harvey was nervous. Remembering his first experience, he was already afraid, especially since Lucy wasn't exactly healthy. Beloved, you have a daughter born, and John has a baby sister, she called him herself. Harvey purposely did not call and did not find out anything, so as not to worry. And now that he found out everything, he was the happiest man in the world. 5 days passed. Lucy had to be picked up from the maternity hospital. Harvey and John and her parents were on their way there. Harvey, maybe you'll move in with us. Things will be easier, his mother-in-law suggested to him. We need to consult with Lucy. He looked at the woman. Okay, she nodded, knew she would probably agree. Hi, love. Congratulations. She wheeled out of the ward door with the baby in her arms. Lucy was hugged by her father and mother. They'd offered her what they'd only offered Harvey in the car. How do you feel about it? She looked at her husband. I'm okay with it, at least for the first time, he shrugged. Then I'm okay with it too. Her father and husband helped her into the car. John sat next to his mom and looked at his baby sister. Will you take her around? Lucy looked at him. Of course, if you let me, I will walk with the stroller in the yard, he promised his mom. Everything will be. Lucy was happy, especially from the fact that in her life appeared that person, which she was promised, will never be. It took a trip home to pack, but they were already ready, as it were. After that, everyone got back in the car and drove to the place where Lucy herself had spent her childhood. How did you agree to this? Lucy asked her husband. I got a job back at my father's factory, so I'll be home less often now, he whispered in her ear. I love you. She realized she had chosen the right man. And he really realized that if it wasn't for this man in his life, he would have nothing. They arrived home. His parents had set aside a separate room for the kids and for the parents. Mommy, Daddy, you're the best. Lucy thanked them. Thank you for your daughter. Harvey came up to them and hugged them. It was the first time it was clear that the girl's parents had forgiven the guy. She came up to them, and John came up to them. It was a strong and happy family. Until she was 13 years old, Catherine did not know what it was like to live with her mom. Catherine always had only Daddy, and that's it. Mom died in childbirth. Catherine could not remember her, and in general, never suffered from her absence. Catherine knew everything about her mom. Her dad always told her. Since childhood, every time he put Catherine to bed was sure to be another series about mom. Therefore, Catherine, despite the fact that she had never seen her mother, knew almost everything about her. Mom all the years invisibly present around, thanks to Dad. And also from Mom left a lot of photos, her clothes, jewelry. Dad carefully kept it all in the dresser, but Catherine was allowed at any time of day or night to open the dresser, go through Mom's things, try on Mom's bracelets and chains, inhale the smell of Mom's perfume from a half-empty bottle, and of course, looking at the photos. There were a lot of them. Mom as a child, Mom at school, Mom with Dad in the South, Mom in a bride's dress, Mom with a big belly. After Mom died, Dad never married again, although many kind-hearted neighbors and relatives tried very hard to encourage it. But Dad always said, I have Catherine and Catherine has me. Why do we need someone else? And Catherine was in complete agreement. They really lived well. Dad had his own business, something to do with computer programs Ekaterina did not particularly delve into. Father and daughter lived in a nice, spacious apartment in the city center, and later they had a country house where they came on weekends to relax in nature from the noise of the city. In general, they had no reason to complain about fate, especially since this fate had already taken away their most precious things, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Catherine did not need anything. Computer, tablet, phone, and other gadgets, all that should be a 13-year-old teenager she had. And in general, Dad never adhered to the principle that the child should be raised in austerity. He believed that the daughter should be pampered, as long as there is such an opportunity. It is not known how her life will develop further, so let at least now, while it is possible, Catherine gets the best of life. Of course, all vacations and vacations they spent together. Every time necessarily flew somewhere in a new country, and always traveled only the two of them. Catherine guessed that Daddy had his own personal life, but with her, 13 years old, he did not discuss it, and she didn't ask questions either. It was enough for her that he didn't bring any outsiders into their world. Catherine would have been happy if it had always been like that, but one fine, or rather, not at all fine day, everything changed. "Catherine, meet Leslie and her daughter Angelica," said Daddy, entering the apartment. Catherine, hearing the lock on the door open, ran out into the hallway. Daddy had been gone for a long time and she was beginning to worry. And now, Daddy came not only very late, but also not alone. Next to him stood a tall blonde. Her lush curls lay beautifully on her shoulders and back. She was dressed in a shiny cloak. Lacquered. Catherine remembered the unfamiliar word. By the hand of this blonde held a girl, about Kadia's age. The girl looked at Catherine warily. Everyone sat down to drink tea. Catherine did not understand why this woman and the girl were here. She would like to spend the evening just the two of them with her father. But no one listened to her, and Daddy seemed to notice nothing around at all except this Leslie. Soon the girls were sent to play in Catherine's room. "Daughter, show Angelica your toys," said Papa, without taking his eyes off Leslie. Once in the room, Catherine tried to talk to Angelica, but she was sullenly silent. Then suddenly she said, "Soon our mother and father will be married." "You're lying," shouted Catherine and cried. "No, I'm not lying," Angelica answered calmly. "I was eavesdropping." Catherine ran out of the room. There was no one in the kitchen. Ekaterina looked for her dad in the living room. Nothing. The door to the bedroom was locked from the inside. No matter how much Catherine did not knock, no one opened it. This was the first time this had happened in their house. Usually the doors were not locked. Angelica came up and, taking Catherine by the hand, almost dragged her behind her back into the room. "Why are you making such a fuss? Are you a little girl? Do not disturb people. Do not touch me," pulled out her hand Catherine. Angelica pushed her back. A fight broke out. The girls scratched and squealed, kicked and bit. The parents who came to the screams barely managed to separate Ekaterina and Angelica. The latter was immediately kicked in the ass by her mother. Catherine's father simply took her into the living room and told her to sit until he returned. Soon Catherine heard that the guests had left, and immediately her father came to her. "Well, tell me, daughter, what you did not share." He took Katina's palm in his big hand and sat next to her on the sofa. Catherine shrugged her shoulders. "These are our guests. I invited them. And you fight? What will they think of us?" "Dad, and why did they come?" "Do not call them again. I did not like them," started sobbing Catherine, preparing to cry. "What did they do to you badly?" surprised Daddy. "That Angelica is very nasty and a liar. She said that you and this aunt will get married." Dad sighed. "And even if she did, what's wrong with that?" "I don't like them." Catherine cut him off. "But you don't know them well yet," objected Father. "I'm sure if you get to know each other better, you will like each other. Do you really want to marry this one? Her name is Leslie, and we're really gonna get married. But if you say no, I'll say no. Got a kitten?" Daddy affectionately called Catherine by her family's pet name. Only he called her that. Hearing that no one will not marry anyone if Catherine is against it, the girl instantly calmed down, and Daddy continued, "Catherine, let's really try to give Leslie and Angelica a chance. You're growing up. You need your mom more and more, and a little sister wouldn't hurt. And it's getting hard for me too. I'd like to have a mistress in the house, a woman's hand. And if I don't want to. But you don't know what it's like, do you? Living with your mom, having a little sister. You just have to try it. What if I don't like it? Well, then it's not gonna work out," Dad concluded. They agreed that this coming weekend they would all go to the park together. When they met, Leslie and Angelica behaved very differently from the first time. Leslie was very nice to Catherine, and Angelica, pretending that there was no fight between them, offered friendship. It turned out that Angelica was a year older than Catherine. She and her mother came to the capital from a small southern town and have been living here for a year. Angelica promised Catherine to teach her how to weave bracelets from beads, and Catherine thought, maybe Dad was right, and this Angelica is not so bad, and it would be cool to have a little sister. They met a few more times, went to the movies, and in a cafe, and in the entertainment center, and in the water park. With Angelica, Catherine during this time never once quarreled with her, that behaved impeccably, and Leslie was favorable to Catherine. She, unlike Angelica, had long thick hair, and Leslie was happy to do Catherine different hairstyles, which suited her very well. Probably, if Mom was alive, she would also make me such beautiful hairstyles, thought Catherine. One day Daddy asked, well, kitten, do you think we could be the same family as Aunt Leslie and Angelica? Probably, Catherine stretched out uncertainly. She did not want to upset her father. She already realized that he really likes Leslie. And remember what pancakes baked Aunt Leslie last time she came to visit us, and she's a great cook too. I like our dumplings too, thought Catherine. Well, give us all a chance, asked Dad. Catherine nodded. 2 years passed. Catherine tried very hard to love the new mom, tried not so much for herself as for Dad. She could see that he wanted her to, but she failed, nor could she love her new sister Angelica. No, they did not fight, did not quarrel. Catherine saw that both Leslie and Angelique were trying to be nice, and this playfulness, strained, artificiality of their feelings repulsed her. But there was nothing to complain about, and when Daddy asked how she lives, whether it does not hurt her Aunt Leslie or Angelica, Catherine always answered in the negative. You won't tell her that she doesn't like the way that Aunt Leslie looks at her, what evil eyes she has at that, or how Angelica is always trying to hurt her feelings in a sneaky way. All the more so because when Daddy and Aunt Leslie and Angelica behaved impeccably, all the time fussing with Catherine as if she were a little girl, calling her our angel and treasure, and Angelica also in addition and favorite sister. But Catherine did not believe them and did not understand why Daddy does not see their hypocrisy. Although, because outwardly everything looked decent, they seemed from the outside one friendly and loving family. Dad's company had grown in recent years, he had more business, and he was in the office from morning until almost night. Aunt Leslie was home all day. She didn't work, she was busy with the household, the children, going to beauty salons and shopping. It was almost impossible to be alone with Daddy now. Aunt Leslie and Angelica were always hanging around, and Catherine, having celebrated her 15th birthday, began to consider herself too old to demand a bedtime story from her father. Sometimes, when there were rare moments in which neither Leslie nor Angelica were at home, Catherine went into the bedroom, opened the dresser, took out her mother's things and sat for a long time, cuddled up with them, face pressed into her mother's dress and looking at her happy eyes from the photograph. Father's birthday was approaching. Since morning, everyone, Leslie and Angelica and Catherine, had been in the kitchen preparing a celebratory dinner. Father had promised to come home early from work, and the whole family hurried to prepare properly. By 7, as promised, the father did not appear. Closer to 8 in the evening, Catherine just did not get off the windowsill. And although because of the snowstorm, a dense shroud that stood outside the window, nothing could not be seen, she still tried to gaze, whether in the yard will not appear in the car, Father. By the time the clock struck 9, both Leslie and Catherine had already dialed her father's number 100 times. He didn't answer. Leslie said, I'm going to go to the office. I'll see who he's hanging out with. Catherine frowned and remained silent. Leslie was already standing in the doorway, dressed in her fur coat, and was buttoning her boots when her phone came to life and rang. Her father's number popped up on the screen. Oh, really? She said irritably, taking the call. The conversation was short. After Leslie turned the phone off, she sank into a chair and said, staring at the wall, Daddy's been in an accident. He's in the hospital. His condition is critical. Catherine Leslie did not take with her, although she screamed and cried. She went alone. I came home in the morning. Angelica was asleep, and Catherine could not sleep a wink all night. She called Leslie several times and she didn't answer. When she heard the door open in the hallway, Catherine ran out in hope. She thought that Leslie was coming home with her father. But she was alone, and from her face Catherine realized the worst had happened. His 16th birthday, Catherine first celebrated without his father. And frankly speaking, she didn't want to celebrate anything. The last 6 months since Daddy was gone, Catherine wanted only one thing: to lie under a blanket, closed from everyone, so that no one pestered with silly conversations. But Leslie, after the death of his father, as if off the chain, out of nowhere in her showed aggression and anger. Or maybe it was all in her before, just before that she carefully controlled herself. Now that her father was gone, Leslie was not shy in her expressions. For the first time, until 6 months before the inheritance, she did not stop cursing her father for not taking care of them, and now, until they have access to his accounts, she has to be poor. And she has 2 dependent children, her own daughter and the foster one she had to get custody of. Leslie was always grumbling about the guardianship too. She didn't like having to fill out a lot of paperwork. Catherine at one point even wanted to shout, "So why don't you put me in an orphanage? It would be easier for you." But 6 months later, when Leslie entered the inheritance, she came to the excellent mood. After all, as she told everyone left and right, she became the owner of her husband's business, as well as all his real estate, expensive car and funds in the accounts. It was as if Leslie had been replaced. She now did not walk, but as if danced, unable to contain her joy. Catherine was no longer a child. Moreover, the death of her father made her grow up quickly. And she realized Leslie was rejoicing at the wealth that had descended upon her. Or perhaps that was her goal. A woman with a daughter, who came from the provinces to conquer the capital, finally found what she longed for so long. Catherine understood perfectly well. Now Leslie to be happy is only prevented by her, the daughter of her dead husband, from which she cannot get rid of because the rumors will go. Everyone will condemn her. And Leslie tried very hard in public to portray a grief-stricken widow and wailing about the 2 orphans left without a father. Although Catherine, being already a 16-year-old girl, neither herself, and especially Angelica, who was 17, did not consider little girls. In front of strangers, Leslie made a spectacle, but at home gradually ceased to be shy in expressions. Catherine had previously guessed that Leslie only in public so kind, but in the soul is completely different, and now fully convinced of this. All of Catherine's life turned into a nightmare, or rather in the fairy tale Cinderella, where a happy ending is simply not foreseen, because princes, as you know, there is no prince, and fairy godmother Catherine did not have. Catherine would have loved to leave home, but Leslie was her guardian, and Catherine had nowhere to go. If she ran away, she'd still be returned to Leslie. At home, it was hell. After so many years of living in the love and care her father had given Catherine, she had learned what it was like to live with people who hated you. Leslie dropped the mask of kindness and turned into the same evil stepmother, who only did nothing but burden Catherine with housework, insult, and abuse. Angelica did not lag behind her mother. Catherine did not even try to understand why. She already knew. She just interferes with them, and looked forward to her coming of age to once and for all leave the house, which had recently become her hated. Leslie and Angelica made life unbearable on a daily basis. All household duties were assigned to Catherine, and if she did not have time to do something, or simply did not obey out of a sense of protest, Leslie had the conscience to hit Catherine, and Angelica gladly helped her mother in this. Periodically with checks came some aunt from the guardianship authorities. Once Catherine tried to say that she was mistreated, but Leslie and Angelica immediately raised Catherine to laughter, made Catherine a little ungrateful liar, which only their efforts did not end up in an orphanage, and lives in his apartment, warm and fed, as it was with his father. Auntie, who did not want to deal with other people's conflicts, shamed Catherine and told her not to try to deceive her anymore, and with that she left, ticking off Leslie for good performance of guardian duties. Catherine was not even allowed to cry enough. As soon as the aunt left and Catherine threw herself down on her bed, she was dragged from it by Angelica, straight to the floor, and reminded in a snide voice about the unwashed dishes. How many times during this time Catherine mentally addressed the same question to her daddy and could not count. "Daddy, why did you marry that Megara and then leave me alone with her?" There was no answer. After that incident with the aunt from the guardianship, Ekaterina realized it is useless to ask adults. They do not care about her. No one will help her. No one will not believe a teenager. They will say that she is ungrateful and slanders Leslie. And stepmother, on the contrary, believed that she knew how, when necessary, and let a tear and add sadness in her voice, and in general, skillfully used her position as a widow and guardian of the daughter of the dead husband. Many even admired her. "Well done, Leslie, did not leave Catherine in trouble alone, takes care of the orphan." Catherine tried to be less likely to get in front of Leslie and Angelica, holed up in her room, although it did not always save. All the same, Leslie found something to pick on. She would get up, sometimes in a bad mood, and start to chase Catherine. That breakfast cooked, that cappuccino brewed, that the dishes are poorly washed, rewash. And all this irritated tone, passing into an aggressive squeal, and then shouting ultrasound. When Catherine was graduating from school, she stammered about studying at the institute, to which Leslie broke into an angry retort. "What institute to you? And who will help me around the house? And you won't make it. You're too dumb for the institute. But you're just like your father. You better think about where you're going to work. Yes, why are you looking at me like that? I'm not going to feed you. Childhood is over. It's time to start earning your own food." Catherine wanted to object that Leslie herself perfectly well lives on father's money, not working anywhere, but remained silent. No good, it would not lead to anything good, an unnecessary scandal she did not want to listen to. In the evening, she decided not to share her plans for life with anyone else, sat down at the laptop, and began to study higher education institutions where she could enter. Angelica caught her doing this when she returned from her walk at 10 o'clock in the evening. "Mom, look, this fool is going to the institute." Having peeked over Catherine's shoulder at what she was doing, Angelica went to complain to her mother. Soon Leslie was already yelling at Catherine. "What? You do not understand from one time. No institutes, go to work. No one is going to support you. Your father's money will soon run out. I spend all my health, taking care of your family. So you have to take care of me now. Get a job. Bring home a paycheck. It's the best thing you can do in this life. I could combine study and work." Tried to object Catherine, realizing the senselessness of this act. "I said no, and that's it." Cut Leslie and added, "And in general, until you are not 18, without my consent you will not submit any documents anywhere." Catherine was silent. Leslie was right. The websites of all the institutes she had studied today said that an underage applicant needed the consent of a parent or guardian to enter the institute. Leslie would definitely not give such consent. Her guardian, realizing that the rebellion was quelled, carried herself out of Katia's room with a satisfied look. And Angelica, leaving after her mother, as if accidentally hit Katina's laptop with her hand, and it fell from the table with a rumble, splitting into pieces. All night Catherine cried into her pillow. She was not so much sorry for the laptop as she was for the photos and videos of her father that were in it. Leslie had long ago thrown away her mom's things and photos that had once been stored in the dresser. Catherine had miraculously managed to save a couple of photos of her mom hugging her dad. All of mom's clothes were ruthlessly thrown out. Jewelry was put in a pawn shop. And now, because of Angelica, Catherine lost dear memories of her father. In the morning, as usual, she got up early. It was necessary to prepare breakfast for Leslie and Angelica. They loved to stay in bed as long as possible and never bothered to help Catherine. On the contrary, they thought breakfast was the least Catherine owed them. "Remember, you worthless creature, while you waste your time sitting in school, I run my father's business for the good of our family, and Angelica is studying hard at the Institute in Economics to help me keep your father's business afloat. So at least make your breakfast on time, asshole. You're of no use to me," Leslie liked to say as she sipped her morning coffee with milk and ate it with pastries or omelettes prepared by Catherine. Catherine was far from stupid. She understood. No business Leslie does not manage, at least because of the lack of education and knowledge. Goes to his father's office once a week just to show up there, and all the affairs run by his father's deputy, which Leslie had enough sense not to kick out, otherwise everything would really fall apart. Well, and how diligently studying Angelica, Catherine also guessed, because not once heard how Leslie scolded her daughter for poor academic performance and threatened to deprive financial support. At such times, Catherine always sighed. It is that stepmother no financial support has never provided, and lately, and in general, Catherine did not even buy clothes. She was just wearing out those things that bored Angelica. Catherine's birthday was approaching. She did not enter the institute because her stepmother did not give her consent. At the same time, she had already found a place to work. Leslie agreed with her friend that Catherine would go to her to work as a saleswoman. Leslie rejoiced. Catherine's salary would go directly into her pocket. Catherine did not participate in these discussions. However, she was not asked, just put before the fact. Immediately after she turns 18, she goes to work. But for herself, Catherine decided, nowhere she will not go. In any case, not on this job. We'll look for something else. Otherwise, she really will not have anything to live on. Leslie, on her knees, preferred not to spend. It's a wonder she didn't scold her about food. On the eve of her birthday, Catherine could not sleep for a long time. Deep past midnight, she went to the kitchen to drink water. Returning to her room, Catherine heard from the HR bedroom conversation. Apparently, her stepmother was talking to someone on the phone. Yes, tomorrow is your 18th birthday. You think we should do something? I see. Let's at least wait until the birthday passes. And the next day immediately. The rest of the night, Catherine lay, flinching at every rustle. From Leslie's long conversation, she realized one thing, that she was up to something, and Catherine to stay in the house is dangerous. Catherine, have you completely lost your fear? Shouted Angelica, coming out in the morning into the kitchen and did not see the usual breakfast. Almost immediately, Leslie also appeared. What's going on here? Where is this one? She asked Angelica irritably. I don't know, Mom. Maybe she decided to take a day off in honor of her birthday. I'm going to give her a day off. Leslie got angry and, stomping loudly, ran into Katia's room. Almost kicking open the door, Leslie flew into the nursery. It was empty. The bed was neatly made. The closet was open. All the things, at first glance, as if they were in place. But Angelica, who had come up, looked at everything carefully and realized that something was missing. She even listed to her mother which clothes were missing, and there was no backpack in the room. Neither was Catherine. Well, what to do now? Leslie said confusedly, sitting down on the edge of the bed. Be happy, Mom. I couldn't even dream of such a thing. Angelica laughed. You don't understand anything, her mother said worriedly. You see, there are some nuances. Oh, what nuances are there? Angelica waved away carelessly. It's lucky she's gone. I'm so tired of having strangers at home all the time. Leslie was about to say something, but changed her mind. Angelica, satisfied, ran back to her room, and her mother sat on the bed for a long time, thinking about something. Her face was extremely concerned. Actually, Leslie didn't plan to go to work today. It was enough that she had been there the day before. She didn't really like to waste time sitting in an office and listening to incomprehensible terms. But this morning she was in a rush to get to work like never before. To be exact, it was still morning for Leslie, but the whole office was already 2 hours old. Billy, hey. Deputy Leslie flew into the office. Hi, what's wrong? He looked surprised at the unexpected guest. Billy didn't like Leslie. Neither did anyone else. She was flighty and capricious, and sometimes it was a miracle to talk her out of making unexpected decisions. Billy made no secret of the fact that he wasn't happy with Leslie's leadership, and she saw it. But Leslie, for all her ambitions, was a rather greedy person, and strangely enough, this is what saved Billy from being fired. Leslie knew very well from her husband's words that no one else could be so involved in every phase of the work but Billy. In fact, he was the only one who knew as much as his boss, now ex-boss. And Leslie didn't want to lose his income because of his own emotions, so he had to put up with Billy and pretend she was being friendly. No, nothing happened. I just thought I'd stop by and see how things were going. Leslie answered, deliberately nonchalant. How about some coffee? Billy was surprised, but asked the secretary to make coffee for him and Leslie. So why are you here? He asked not too kindly when they both sat down at a small table on the armchairs and took a cup of coffee, just brewed by the secretary. No reason. I want to pay more attention to work. Or maybe you're making such a fuss because Catherine turned 18. Billy suddenly hit the mark. Leslie nervously fixed her curls and said nothing. Then, as if by the way, she said, "By the way, is she here, by any chance? Why would she be here?" Billy looked at her in astonishment. "No, I understand that she has the right, but the girl has never shown any interest in our business." "I see." There was disappointment in Leslie's voice. She'd expected Catherine to be here. But the nasty girl wasn't here. What a bastard. When you don't need her, she gets in the way, and when you do, you have to look for her all over town. Now that we're talking about it, Billy took a sip of coffee. She really ought to be here. You remember what her father's will says, don't you? Leslie snapped back. The girl is completely out of control, does what she wants, doesn't report to me. I can't bring her here by force. Why force her? Billy was surprised. Just tell her we're expecting her. There are some important administrative matters that need to be taken care of. We've done it without her before, and we'll do it now. Leslie cut me off. I'm still here and ready to do my job. Don't play dumb. I repeat, Catherine turned 18. If you want to continue to supervise, you need a power of attorney. You are no longer the guardian. We'll see. Leslie shook her curls and rose from her chair. She left the office feeling upset. Not only was Catherine not here, but Billy had reminded her of the most unpleasant thing of all, her ex-husband's will. Only knave Catherine had not realized that her father had left her everything. Everything, and business and real estate and car and bank accounts. And Leslie had the right to dispose of all this only as Katina's guardian. Leslie's husband left her only a bank account. True, the amount of money there was quite solid, but of course it was not very comforting to her, after she learned that except for the account she got nothing. Billy, as the person concerned, was the only one who knew the terms of the will. Otherwise, how else would Leslie take over the company? So, as Katina's guardian, she got involved in the process. In the time between now and Ketia's majority, Leslie had gotten used to the idea that she was now rich, and she wasn't going to give Catherine anything when she turned 18. Catherine doesn't know the terms of the will, does she? No. You can negotiate with the notary, and then persuade, convince, intimidate, or otherwise bend the girl under himself and get a power of attorney to continue to manage everything on a permanent basis. Only Catherine disappeared at the most inopportune moment. Formally, now Leslie has no rights to manage the business, and the girl must be found immediately. Leslie sharply spun the steering wheel of the car, redirected, and turned back. We have to go to the police, write a missing persons report. Let them search, the police or what? But at the police station, Leslie did not take the statement, even though she scandalized and screamed. They told her to wait 3 days. A person of legal age, not a child. Who knows, maybe she hung out with a friend, or with friends in Soki. So what if she didn't say anything? She doesn't have to. If Catherine knew what a commotion made at home her escape, she would have been greatly surprised. It seemed to her that the stepmother should be only glad that Catherine had freed the apartment from her presence. Of course, Catherine knew nothing of her father's will. She was a child when he died, Leslie her legal guardian. Therefore, all questions were solved with Leslie. Only Leslie had all the information. Catherine didn't even know that her father had left everything to her, his favorite daughter. Yes, she had never thought about this topic because of her young age, and well, otherwise long ago would have been upset by ignorance that her father deprived her of her inheritance. In short, Catherine had no idea that the apartment, in which she had recently become an unwanted element, belonged only to her. Leslie, and certainly Angelica, had nothing to do with her. Leslie, as Catherine's guardian, has the right to reside there, and Angelica was in the apartment for no legal reason at all. Same with her father's business. Everything was in Catherine's name, and until she came of age, Leslie, as guardian, was supposed to act in Catherine's interests, as well as managing the accounts in the tank. Any actions of Leslie with the property of her ex-husband should have been solely in the interests of Catherine as required by law and the will itself. In fact, it is clear that Leslie managed the finances as she wished. Catherine was not able to even dream of pocket money. That is why now Catherine sat in the park on the other side of the city and calculated how much money she had enough. Long ago, when her father was still alive, He often spoiled his daughter and gave her money for holidays. Take, kitten, buy yourself a blouse or a skirt. I do not know what you have now fashionable. Catherine had enough of everything, and she did not spend her father's money, but saved it. And now they came in handy. According to Kadia's calculations, there was enough money to rent a place to live for the first time. In the morning, while Leslie and Lepra slept, Catherine quietly put the essentials, things, money, and her documents in a backpack and left. The reasons were many, and the conversation overheard during the night was just the last straw. And already she was going to leave home. Just the conversation pushed her. In any case, Catherine didn't want to work for free for some friend of Leslie's. She didn't want to listen to any more insults from her stepmother and Lurka. I didn't want to see all the memories of mom and dad thrown out of the apartment. Therefore, when Catherine was barely 18, she left. The first thing Catherine did was to change her SIM card. She threw the old one away so that neither Leslie nor Angelica could find it. That was why Billy, who had been excited by Leslie's morning visit, had been unable to reach Catherine, although he was eager to hear from her personally that she planned to continue to give Leslie the right to run the company. But the caller was unavailable. The subscriber was currently sitting on a bench in the public garden eating a raisin bun, drinking hot, sweet coffee, and rejoicing in his freedom. "Catherine, don't sleep. Move," habitually shouted Max, the administrator of the cafe, entering the kitchen. Catherine was just putting on a tray order for the third table. Max had a style of management to yell at his subordinates, regardless of whether they were doing a good job or not. But he did it without malice, more for tone than to offend. And now, having heard his cheerful "don't sleep, move," Catherine, deftly maneuvering between people, went out into the hall with a tray and in no time found herself in front of the right table. She worked in this cafe for a month, very quickly got into all the subtleties and nuances of the work of the waiter. So now she felt like a fish in water. Running away from home, Catherine the same day rented a modest apartment on the outskirts of the city, no frills, just to have a place to sleep. Her savings are not rubber. Who knows what lies ahead? It is better to save. Ekaterina was very afraid that she would not be hired anywhere because she had no experience. But in the first place where she dared to timidly ask about vacancies, she was lucky. She went for a snack at a cafe near her home, and while she was sitting there, she noticed that there were very few waitresses, only 2, and they clearly could not cope. Catherine plucked up courage and approached the administrator, red-haired, freckled guy, 2 years older than her. As it turned out later, his name was Max. He immediately held an impromptu interview. Catherine satisfied him. And let's face it, the work of waitresses does not imply serious requirements for candidates. And 2 days later, Catherine already went on an internship. All she had succeeded, and could not be otherwise, because she served Leslie and Angelica for so long that she was already a ready waitress, you could say. Max even asked an hour after the start of the internship, "Are you sure you haven't worked anywhere before us?" Ekaterina shook her head negatively. That's how she stayed to work in this cafe. Ekaterina was satisfied with her work, as well as with her new life in general. Shifts she put her often, she was not mistaken. The cafe needed waitresses. Therefore, Catherine's weekends were rare, but she didn't mind at all. She had no other things to do but work, and the question of money was very acute. Winter was approaching. She needed winter clothes, and just for food somewhere had to take money. Therefore, Catherine was only happy every extra shift, although her partner sometimes whined and capricious and scolded Max for nothing, calling him an exploiter. Ekaterina, except for work and go nowhere. With girlfriends, she cut off all communication, along with the discarded SIM card. She was afraid that Leslie would find her through acquaintances or friends, so Catherine had no one to socialize with. In the cafe, she did not dare to make friends with anyone. The waitresses were all already married, some of them with children, and Catherine was simply not interesting to them, with their eternal conversations about prices in stores, goat husbands, and naughty children. But Max was genuinely interested in Catherine, and that made her a little wary. Despite the fact that Catherine was 18, she had not yet had any serious relationships. At school, she was friends with a classmate, but it was a childish sympathy, no more. Nothing like that. A couple of kisses after school, and that was it. And then when Leslie went completely off the rails, it was out of the question for Catherine to go out for a walk, to the movies, to the club. She was told to stay at home and do household chores. That's why Catherine had nowhere to get a boyfriend. Well, and now she became independent, and in addition to the pluses, the new status brought negative aspects too. For example, the advances of this Max. Catherine didn't like Max, not at all. He was insolent, with constantly wet palms and running eyes. She avoided his attention as much as she could. One time she even had to punch him in the face. She went into the back room to get something, and Max followed her, and there he tried to hit on her. Catherine was not confused and slapped him on his insolent face, and in addition a knee to the groin as she once taught her father. It worked Max for a while, so frankly and obviously Pester stopped, but greasy hints still did not stop. Catherine was afraid that he would fire her, but it did not happen, although it was not in his interest because he did not give up hope to get attention. One day Catherine thought that Angelica was sitting in the hall. She was thrown into a fever, then into a cold, and she, as she was, together with the tray, which she did not have time to bring to the table, retreated to the kitchen. Carefully, she set the tray on the serving table and only then realized that her hands were shaking so badly that she couldn't clasp them together. Carefully peeking out of the door, Catherine took a closer look. It only seemed to her the girl was just very similar to Angelica. This incident made Catherine realize that although she had run away from home, she still had not run away from the past, and it could catch up with her at any moment. Catherine, as well as every waiter in their cafe, were assigned their tables. At many of them often sat down to eat a snack regular customers. All of them Catherine for a month managed to remember. Almost all of them she got in touch with. Many left her a good tip. With one of the regular customers, a girl of about 25 years, they even sometimes threw a couple of phrases, although Max forbade strictly forbidden to enter into conversations with visitors, not related to work. But this girl always talked to Catherine herself, and it would be impolite to keep silent in response. The girl's name was Victoria, and she worked in the neighboring building, so she often came to this cafe for lunch. After a month, she and Catherine knew a little about each other, but enough to have short conversations. Victoria knew that Catherine rented an apartment nearby, that she supported herself, that she had no relatives, and Catherine knew that Victoria worked as a lawyer and also lived nearby. Catherine sympathized with Victoria, even envied her in some ways. Catherine also wanted to get an education and do something serious, and not run all her life with trays. One day Victoria came at an unusual time just before the cafe closed. Max was very unhappy. He called Catherine aside and strictly instructed her to put the customer on the street as soon as possible, because the institution closes in 5 minutes. Catherine approached Victoria, but saw that she was sitting in tears. To kick her out of the cafe in such a state would be cruel. Catherine stood next to her, but Victoria did not even notice her. Then Catherine just left to give the girl time to calm down. Of course, she was immediately kicked by Max. He reminded her everything at once, and finished with reproaches that Catherine does not respond to the signs of attention, and tried to hit on her again. Catherine forcibly fought back. She realized that Max is a coward, and to cause serious harm is not capable, and he did not try to completely overstep the boundaries, but even his salivating kisses, with which he climbed to Catherine, caused disgust. When Catherine, having barely got rid of Max, returned to the hall, Victoria was already gone. Max, running out, immediately rejoiced, and even forgot that he wanted something from Catherine. But Catherine was upset. She saw that Victoria needed help, that she was obviously in trouble, and she didn't even have time to ask. Victoria did not appear in the cafe for several days. Catherine even began to worry, but then one day Victoria came to lunch again, as if nothing had happened, and Catherine was relieved. When she brought Victoria her order, she smiled heartily, as if to let her know that she was glad to see her in a good mood. And Victoria suddenly said, "Can I order you a coffee and you can sit and drink it with me?" "We're not supposed to have coffee during working hours," Catherine said. "But you do have a lunch break, don't you?" Victoria said reasonably, "And now it's lunchtime. After all the claims of your management I will take on myself. The desire of the client is the law." Ekaterina, after some thought, nodded and soon returned to the table with 2 large steaming cups of coffee with milk foam. Victoria's story turned out to be very typical for a girl. She had a fiancé. They rented an apartment together and planned to get married. They were saving money for the wedding. Victoria trusted her fiancé. But one day she came home at the wrong time and caught him with some strange girl. Of course, she gave the traitor a scandal and then packed her things and proudly left. At first worried, and then realized, thank you that it happened now, and not after the wedding. Only one problem now remains, the lack of housing. You cannot imagine how difficult it is now to find an apartment at a reasonable price, and that near work. All options that come across so far away. To get to the office an hour is still the most acceptable of what is available. Would you like to stay with me? Shyly asked Catherine. Why? I rent accommodation here, in the neighboring building. The apartment is a one-room apartment, but with a huge kitchen, which has a sofa. Until you find something, you can stay with me. Really? Victoria was excited. That would be great, but I have two conditions, payment in half, and you stop howling at me. Otherwise, I feel like an old lady something. Catherine glowed and nodded. The rest of the day, she worked in a great mood and dreamed that Victoria was satisfied with the apartment. Catherine liked her new acquaintance very much. She was tired of loneliness. She needed a girlfriend, and she would pay less for the apartment. When Catherine left the cafe after the shift, Victoria was already waiting for her at the entrance with a suitcase. Are you all ready with your things? Oh, I mean you, asked Catherine. What if you don't like it? Don't worry, I'll like any accommodation, as long as it was in this neighborhood and without my jerk of an ex, cheerfully replied Victoria. But she really liked the apartment. Catherine was worried that Victoria would object to the kitchen and even suggested that she herself will sleep there. But the new friend only cheered up. What are you doing? Why shouldn't I like it? It is the most Trump place in the apartment. If you want to eat at night, you don't even have to get out of bed. Just stretch out your hand. The sofa in the kitchen was really comfortable and a lot of space, so Catherine calmed down. The next evening, the girls arranged an impromptu housewarming party. When Catherine came from the cafe, Victoria had already set the table and poured wine into glasses. What took you so long? She asked. Your bosses know that there is a labor code. Why do you work without a day off? Come on, muttered Ekaterina. I do not mind, and the money is also not superfluous. If only this nasty Max did not pester me, I would not leave there at all 24 hours a day. Victoria moved Catherine a plate with salad and, raising her glass, said, Well, now tell me, what happened to you? Why do you live alone? Why don't your parents support you? Why do you have to provide for yourself? Why is there no one to stand up for you in front of that ginger terrorist of yours? Gradually, over a friendly conversation, Catherine told Victoria everything about herself. She did not interrupt and listened very attentively. And Catherine realized that she really missed it, the opportunity to share their experiences with someone who understands. When Catherine finished, Victoria summarized, What I told your stepmother it is, and my father should have chosen a better life partner. I'm sorry. It's okay, I think so myself. You just haven't seen Leslie. She's clinging to Dad like a leech. I knew the minute I saw them together that there was no getting rid of her. And Dad, he just wanted us to finally have a real family, and I had my mom. I just don't get it. From what you've told me, Daddy loved you very much. So why didn't he take care of you? You ended up with nowhere to live and nothing to live on. Why did Leslie get everything? Aren't you confused? It's not supposed to be like that. You're the heiress anyway. I don't know. Leslie said she's my guardian, so she's in charge of everything. And she said there's not much money left after Dad. But you're an adult now. You don't need a guardian anymore. Let me see if I can find out if there's anything we can do. It's no use. Catherine waved her hand. A year ago, I heard how Leslie reissued the apartment to herself. And why didn't you object to her? She said that she had the right, as guardian, to make any transactions. And she said some other stuff I didn't really understand. Anyway, the bottom line is, I don't own the apartment anymore. Daddy's money is gone. It's gone. It's all very strange. Victoria stretched thoughtfully. We should look into it. Please don't. I do not want to see or hear about them. Frightened Catherine replied. About the fact that she was afraid of Leslie also because of that conversation. Overheard at night, Catherine did not say. She didn't want to scare Victoria. She didn't want to frighten Victoria, who might change her mind about living in the apartment. Victoria looked at Catherine thoughtfully and did not answer anything. From that day on, Catherine's life changed. Now she had a friend, a person with whom she could share both joy and worries. However, Catherine did not have much joy. Her whole life was a cafe, with breaks for home sleep and rare days off. In addition, the more Catherine did not give a pass to the administrator. Realizing that on good Cadia's disposition he cannot achieve, he changed tactics. Began to trembling Catherine, clinging to the little things, punished for every trifle. On the day of the next paycheck, Catherine was surprised to see the amount, which was half the usual. On all questions, Max answered only one thing: bad work, made a mistake. Customers complained about you because of your rudeness. Be thankful you only got half the bonus, and next time I'll take away 100%. Catherine realized that all this he made up on the fly, and she was very offended that she cannot prove why he is so picking on her. Well, you're a smart girl, Catherine. Max grinned. You know how to fix the situation. If you were not so prickly, and I would also show you more sympathy. And so that Catherine understood exactly what he was implying, Max immediately tried to grab her. Work was becoming more and more difficult. Catherine would have long ago left this cafe, but where? She did not even have time to look for something else. She worked almost every day. One day, Victoria went to the cafe for lunch as usual and became an unwitting witness to the fact that Max picks on Catherine's every move. At home, she asked, "Is it that bad? So why don't you get out of there?" "What else can I do? There are a lot of cafes and restaurants around. You will not be lost," Victoria answered confidently. Catherine nodded. Indeed, in some cafes she will definitely be taken, maybe even a better salary. Victoria's support and her confidence that everything would be fine encouraged Catherine. And on the next shift, she went into Max's office and informed him that she was quitting. Of course, he told to work for 2 weeks, and all this time did Catherine nasty things. Until one day she accidentally poured a kettle of brew on him. That's what she said to him with a nice smile. "Oh, it was an accident." Max took offense like a child and moored to Catherine before the dismissal did not pester. And in the evening at home, Victoria suddenly asked, "Listen, and you would not want to work with us? Why do you need to run with trays? You are not stupid. Quickly learn new things. Why do you need these cups and plates? What about you?" Catherine flashed with embarrassment. She remembered that Victoria worked in a law firm, and what could Catherine be there? A secretary? A coffee maker? Probably. That's all she could do. Once again, Catherine regretted that she had never studied anywhere and promised herself that next year she would make up for it. The next day, Victoria took Catherine to an interview with the head of the department, a nice middle-aged woman, and as a result, she was hired as an assistant. Catherine couldn't believe her part. She would not be making coffee, but working with documents. But would she be able to cope? However, Victoria cheered her up. "There is nothing difficult in preparing documents for our employees. You will learn." Ekaterina had already been working at the law firm for 2 months. Her position was called paralegal. In fact, that's what she was doing. She did simple technical work for Victoria and her colleagues in her department. She printed out forms, filled out cards for clients, drew up contracts according to templates. In short, everything that did not require special knowledge of law. Victoria even once remarked to her, "Catherine, you just glow with happiness. What's wrong with you? Not in love by any chance?" "No, that you," replied Catherine, shining as if really in love. "Just I like my new life. Not long ago, running with trays in the cafe, listening to the reproaches of Max, tolerating his molestation. I could not dream that my life could be like this." "Okay," Victoria stretched out. "And about falling in love? Think about it. We have mostly unmarried guys here, and you're a good-looking girl, and how long can you be alone?" Victoria herself had already forgotten her ex-boyfriend and was dating someone else. Catherine was embarrassed and said nothing. She really wanted to fall in love. Around everyone was building relationships, running on dates, falling in love, breaking up, reconciling again. In short, everyone's personal life was boiling. The same Victoria lately was almost never at home, and the evenings disappear on dates. Catherine's life was completely quiet. What could she do if no one has not caused in her soul any response? Yes, Periodically with her tried to flirt and before in a cafe and here in a law firm, which she was very surprised she thought lawyers a priori people boring and dry. And it turned out, everything is not so. They are the same as everyone else. But beyond flirting, business did not go. Catherine did not give reasons. No one has not yet caused her any emotions, the desire to meet, and just the slightest interest. She has already begun to think that she is something wrong with her, to look for reasons why she does not like anyone, as suddenly with her happened a case that turned her whole life. It was winter, the first day after the New Year's vacation. Usually Catherine and Victoria always went to work together, but Victoria flew to work on a business trip yesterday, so Catherine went to the office alone that day. On the way, she stopped at a cafe for a cappuccino. Of course, not in her former cafe. Now she had another favorite, where they brewed the world's most delicious coffee, and the administrator was a nice smiling girl. So, with a cup of coffee in one hand and a purse in the other, Catherine went up to the porch of the office building where she worked. But too late she noticed that the porch steps were all icy. The ice was invisible because of the snow that covered the top of this ugliness. Apparently, during the long New Year's vacation, no one particularly watched the territory, and the ice on the steps now insidiously made itself known. Catherine, unsuspecting, stepped on a step, then on another, third, and then her foot went somewhere to the side. Purse flew to one side, coffee in another, and Catherine herself, slipping, fell down. Everything happened so quickly that she had no time to realize anything. Just now she was climbing the steps, inhaling the delicious smell of coffee and anticipating how now will drink it at her desk. And here she is already lying on the snow, and next to lying glass, from which on the snowdrift spreads coffee puddle. Catherine tried to get up, but almost immediately she yelped and sat back down on the snow. A sharp pain pierced her right leg near the ankle. Just as long as it's not a fracture flashed through Catherine's mind. She removed her boot from her foot and threw it down beside her, going to examine her ankle. It seemed to her that the foot was beginning to swell. "Young lady, can I help you?" Behind Catherine, there was a banging of a car door and a hurried running. A young man with a briefcase in his hand began to lift Catherine, but barely standing on her right leg, she cried out, "Oh, it hurts." Catherine did not hold back, although she was usually patient. But the pain was so strong that the cry occurred by itself. "You need to go to the emergency room. Come on, I'll take you." The young man continued to support Catherine by the waist. "You must have come here for work. Now my colleagues will go to work. They will see me anyway. I'll ask someone to help." Catherine tried to resolve the situation. This stranger was with a briefcase, also with a needle, in a good coat, not cheap shoes, and even smelled from him some expensive perfume. Well, obviously on business came. Why distract him? "It's all right, don't worry." He smiled. "I'll make it. Let's go already if you have a fracture." While Catherine crumpled and doubted whether or not to agree to go somewhere with a strange man, he, not thinking long, lifted her in his arms and carried her to the car. Catherine had to involuntarily put her arms around his neck, and in those 3 seconds, while he was carrying her, everything turned upside down inside her. She did not yet realize what had happened, but she felt that she had changed. The stranger nonchalantly put Catherine in the front seat and even buckled her up himself. Then he went back to the place of Catherine's fall, picked up her purse and shoe. "You almost lost your shoes, Cinderella." He put Catherine's things in the back seat and then sat behind the wheel and they drove off. "Let's get acquainted, shall we? I don't know how to address you," he said to Catherine after a couple minutes of driving. "My name's Harry." "Harry, what's your middle name?" Catherine asked a stupid question. She knew for herself such a peculiarity. If a person she liked, she was lost in his company and began to talk nonsense or just shut up, which was even worse. "I'm not so old, only 27, laughed the new acquaintance. "So let's just go with you and no middle names. Harry, or better yet, Harry. Well, what's your name? Although I can call in Cinderella if you want." "I'm Catherine." Embarrassed, answered the failed Cinderella. "Well, tell me, Catherine, how did you find yourself so early in the morning on the first working day of the year on that treacherous porch? More precisely, in the snowdrift. What were you doing there in the first place?" Catherine said she was on her way to work. "And where do you work?" Harry was curious. Catherine named her firm and added, "You must have been coming to us. No one opens so early except us." "I guessed," agreed interlocutor. "Well, I knew it. Broke all your plans." Catherine was upset. She was really uncomfortable that such a man because of her had to leave his important business and take her to the hospital. Although somewhere in the depths of her soul, everything in Catherine rejoiced at the fact that he was with her, and she wanted them to go to the hospital as long as possible. "The plans could wait. They're just plans, and your leg is injured. That's more important," Harry replied and changed the subject. "I guess you've been working there for a while. I know all the employees, but I've never seen you." "You guessed it," nodded Catherine. "Only 2 months. And what do you do?" Harry continued his questions. "I'm a paralegal." "Oh yeah, that's right. You're too young to be a paralegal. You could have figured it out yourself. Besides, there was an opening in one of the departments, I've been told," answered the new acquaintance. "You cannot know everything about all the firms in which you come to work." As if to justify Harry, Catherine. "And that's right," he replied and added, "We're here." Harry helped Catherine to get out of the car and jumped to the entrance to the trauma center. And there he sat her on a chair in the corridor and went to find out what was wrong. Next, Catherine was examined by a doctor. Then there was an x-ray, and everywhere Harry accompanied her. She had no idea how she would have coped on her own without him. As a result, it turned out that Catherine did not have a fracture, but there is damage to the ligaments of the ankle. "This often happens when a person slips on the ice," said the doctor. She applied a bandage, prescribed treatment, and told her not to load her leg for the first time. Catherine rubbed herself. Victoria went away for a few days, as without her, because you can't even go to the store. When they got into the car, Harry asked for the address and took Catherine home. On the way they talked. He seemed to Catherine to be a man who could find common ground with anyone. At least for herself, Catherine could say that she was so comfortable with her new acquaintance, as if they knew each other for an eternity, not a couple of hours. Catherine herself did not notice how she told the new acquaintance everything about herself, and the fact that she has no relatives and the stepmother, and the circumstances under which she ran away from home, and about working at the cafe and meeting Victoria. She was surprised at herself. It usually took her a while to start trusting people, and it rarely took her to talk about herself, about her problems. Almost never. But now she felt so at ease with Harry. She felt like he understood her. He wouldn't judge her, and she could tell him anything at all, like a close person. And Harry also knew how to listen. That's why Catherine didn't notice that she had told Harry her story as if it were true. She came to her senses when her story has already reached a new job. "Oh, I'm so chatty," embarrassed Catherine muttered, realizing that all the way she was talking and her companion was silent and did not give a word to put in. "Talk about myself and about myself. Probably you are not interested." "No, I'm not," Harry objected. "On the contrary, I was listening. You're so young, and you have such a dramatic history behind you that you could make a TV series. Not every adult could handle that kind of life, and you were a child." "I'm not a kid anymore." "I see." Harry smiled. Every smile he gave Catherine made her feel so warm. She felt that despite the situation, she was happy. And she wasn't even particularly worried about what would happen next or how she would cope on her own without Victoria. On the way, they stopped at a grocery supermarket and bought some food. "So you don't have to waddle on one leg to get groceries," Harry explained, returning from the store with a bag. Catherine blushed. It had been a long time since anyone had cared for her like this. Perhaps since Daddy was still alive. No, there was Victoria, of course, but Catherine was an equal, and they shared all the chores equally. And Harry showed such genuine care and attention that Catherine just melted by the minute. Catherine saw with regret that they had pulled up to the house. If it were up to her, she was ready to ride with Harry all day in the car and talk, especially since he hadn't had time to tell her anything about himself. She was the only one talking. Harry drove her all the way to her apartment, and when he left, Catherine waddled into the room as she was, without taking off her coat, and fell on the couch with a happy smile. Her leg was aching. She didn't know how she was going to get around all these days, but she felt happy. With all the traveling, the doctors, the worries, she had completely forgotten to let work know she wouldn't be coming in. "Hello, Natalie, it's Catherine." She prepared to explain herself. But the boss said, "Catherine, we already know, we were told." So if you don't worry, take all the treatment you need. And if you need help, contact us. You don't have any relatives, do you? Call, we'll send someone to get medicine or groceries, whatever you need. Catherine was pleasantly surprised. She did not even think that the boss was not lazy in studying her personal file, and in general turned out to be a sensitive person. The rest of the day Catherine spent at the TV. She sat on the sofa, stretching out her sore leg, and clicked the remote control while reading the news on the internet from her phone. But by evening, she couldn't remember any news or television program because Harry was occupying all her thoughts. She was very sorry that she was so chatty. Now she really wanted to know something about him, but it was too late. Catherine wasn't even sure if they would ever see each other again. She thought, here I will recover, go to work, and they're already trying to find out something about him. I was a fool not to ask his name or place of work. How can I find him now? Catherine's mood immediately dropped. Besides, it only now came to her. Harry could have asked for her phone number if he wanted to, but he didn't. I guess I dreamed in vain. Who he is and who I am. We're different. I'm just an assistant with no education, and he's obviously a serious specialist. And it is unlikely that such an attractive man is lonely, most likely married or with someone dating. From these thoughts, Catherine became quite despondent. She turned off the TV, turned her back to the wall, and fell asleep in a sad mood. In the morning, Catherine was awakened by a phone call. She did not immediately realize who and where the caller. First grabbed the phone and started to turn off the alarm clock, then guessed that no alarm clock did not start she was sick. In the end, Catherine realized that it was ringing in the apartment. She waddled to the door. The clock showed 8 in the morning. At this time, no one adequate could come, only the crazy neighbor downstairs, who always thought that Catherine and Victoria flooded her, poisoned, or purposely stomped their feet to collapse the ceiling. Catherine had already prepared for another peek with the inadequate old woman, but when she opened the door, she was surprised and speechless. On the threshold stood Harry with packages in his hands. While Catherine searched for lost words, he said, "Hi, how are you doing here alone? Can I come in?" Catherine stepped aside, and the guest entered the apartment. He took off his coat, and at the same time said, "Sorry for the early visit, but I will be busy all day. I will be free not earlier than 10 o'clock in the evening. But to come and make sure that you have everything well here, had to be sure." Catherine thought only about one thing, that she is now so sleepy, shaggy, in some stretched t-shirt and sportswear, stands in front of this handsome, dressed with needles, and probably looks like a complete fool and ugly. "So, did I make you angry enough to come over here?" Harry asked, seeing that Catherine was silent. She wanted to say that she would have been happy to have him here any time of day or night, but she just nodded, embarrassed to look at him and trying to tidy her hair with her hands at the same time. "It's fine. I just wasn't expecting it, and here we go. Don't worry, I think your hair looks great. I like it." Harry smiled, and to avoid any more embarrassments like this, "Give me your phone number. I didn't realize to write it down yesterday." While he was writing down the phone number, she finally came to her senses. "I'll make some coffee. I'll just wash up. I'll do everything myself. I don't need you to run around the kitchen with a sore leg." When Catherine came out of the bathroom in a decent shirt, with her hair combed and washed, and more confident, Harry had already made coffee for them. And to go with the coffee, he had taken fresh croissants out of the bags he had brought. Catherine was amazed again. She knows this man only the second day, and between them everything is so easy. He manages in her kitchen, as if always lived here, and she looks at this picture, as if it is all familiar, as if this is their usual morning. "Here, Catherine, come on, dig into the food." Harry slid her a plate with a delicious smelling croissant. "Sick people should eat well. I don't have time right now. I have to run, but I'll come back tonight and check on you and what you've eaten." Hearing that he would also come in the evening, Catherine smiled uncontrollably. "You need something? You tell me, I'll bring it," he asked. Catherine shook her head. "All right, if you remember anything, call. Right, I'm on the phone." Harry left as quickly as he appeared, and Catherine all day remembered their morning conversation in detail. And no matter how she did not hide from herself, eventually admitted, yes, she likes Harry very much. She was afraid to say the word "in love" to herself, though. though it would have been obvious to anyone who could somehow see into Katina's thoughts. Victoria called on the video link. Catherine told her what had happened to her. "What are you doing out there without me alone? You can't even go outside." Victoria was immediately worried. "Do not worry, I have someone to help. Catherine told me about Harry." "Why do you sound so happy, and you're smiling in a new way?" Victoria asked. "Come on, tell me, who is this Harry? I wonder if you've fallen in love without me." "No, I haven't," with a happy smile objected Catherine. "He just helped me." But it was clear to Victoria. She had never seen Catherine's eyes so radiant. In the evening, as promised, Harry came to visit Catherine. Only now he brought not groceries, but a beautiful bouquet of flowers. Catherine buried her nose in it and stood like that for a long time to hide her happy smile. Until Victoria returned, and until Catherine could walk on her own, Harry continued to visit her. He took her to the hospital twice for dressings and checkups, and once he even took her out of town for some fresh air. "Catherine, all day long you sit at home with this light, the light white do not see. Let's go to nature." And all this time Catherine was tormented by one thought. Why does Harry care about her so much? Does he like her, or is it just a good attitude to a person in a difficult situation, who has no one else to help? As Catherine did not dare to ask, and from Harry's behavior, she could not draw any conclusions. He came to see her every day, and it was obvious that he was interested in Catherine, but he did not make any hints of rapprochement. If Catherine had not been so timid, she would have kissed him long ago, but she was inexperienced in such matters and was shy to show her sympathy for Harry openly, especially since he himself did not show any initiative. But Catherine was still glad, because they saw each other every day. And during this time she only became more attached to Harry. Soon Victoria returned, and Harry stopped coming, because Catherine no longer needed his help. That's what he told her himself. But before she could get upset, he added that if Catherine was okay with it, he would like to continue communicating with her. Of course, Catherine was not against it. Now they began to call each other, and when Catherine removed the bandage, the same day Harry picked her up, and they once again went out of town. Catherine had long ago admitted to herself she fell in love for the first time in her life, and as much as she could not even imagine, only one thing upset her. From Harry still did not come any initiative to bring them together. Soon there were new changes in Catherine's life. Victoria moved to live with the guy she was dating. At other times, Catherine would have been very upset, but now she realized that there is no bad without good. When Harry never once visited, he refused, he was busy, or something else. And Catherine realized he was just uncomfortable having someone else in the apartment. But now, the first day Victoria had moved in, Catherine had invited Harry to visit, and he'd agreed. She realized she was right. Catherine had prepared for Harry's visit very carefully because it was practically their first date. She set the table, beautifully styled her long hair, wore a new outfit, which suited her very well, and even a little makeup, although she had never used makeup before. She wanted to be irresistible tonight. She wanted Harry to see her, to be speechless, and to stop, finally, to restrain himself. After all, Catherine couldn't be wrong. She felt that he liked her. It was enough just to see his gaze, which he looked at Catherine, to hear the voice with which he spoke to her. The evening had started off just fine. Everything was just as Catherine had fantasized. Harry arrived with a large bouquet of white roses, was in a good mood all the time, joking, telling jokes, complimenting Catherine, saying that today she was especially beautiful. Catherine was waiting for something to happen. She could physically feel the air thickening between them, and she was sure Harry could feel the chemistry too. Couldn't help but feel it. But the evening was coming to an end, and nothing was happening. Catherine didn't understand what was wrong. She went over her words in her head, making sure she hadn't said anything unnecessary or repulsive, but Harry still made no attempt to get closer. Finally, Catherine decided to take matters into her own hands. Little did she know if Harry was afraid of offending her or whatever else was in his head. Catherine turned on the music and asked him to dance, although before that she wished he would do it, to ask her himself. Catherine's favorite song was playing and the man she loved was next to her. Catherine closed her eyes and laid her head on Harry's shoulder. To be completely happy right now, what she lacked right now was for him to kiss her. and she was ready to swear that she felt it. He wanted it too. But the dance went on, the music kept playing, and Harry did nothing. Moreover, at one point Catherine felt as if he even pulled away from her, as if he had decided that he had overstepped his bounds and was hugging her too tightly. Catherine never realized what happened next. Maybe desperation gave her strength, maybe resentment, or maybe it was her strong feelings for Harry that made her do it. But she suddenly, unexpectedly to herself, without any foreplay, took to kissing Harry herself. And then, frightened at her own audacity, she was about to move away from him, but he wouldn't let her. And finally, what she had wanted for so long happened. Harry himself began to kiss her. At some point, Catherine even got dizzy, and she stopped thinking about what was happening and where they were. There was only him and her. And then Harry, as if coming to his senses, pulled away from her. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that," he said in a grim tone, as if something irreparable had happened. Catherine wanted to argue that it was just a kiss, but she realized from the look on Harry's face that it was better not to say anything. "I should probably go. No offense, but it's late. I have to get up early tomorrow," he said, the first thing that came into his head. They said their goodbyes dryly and Harry left, and Catherine was left in disheveled feelings, not realizing what had happened at all. She couldn't sleep all night, replaying over and over in her head everything that had happened. She could be wrong. She could feel the passion with which he had kissed her. It couldn't have been fake. Then why had he gotten scared and left? Catherine texted Harry and saw that he had read it, but there was no reply. She lay awake until morning. Good thing it was Saturday and she didn't have to go to work. Ekaterina fell asleep only in the morning, and she had some heavy, cloudy dreams. She got up at almost noon. She looked up and there was no answer from Harry. Then she decided there was nothing to lose. She should call him. However, it wasn't that simple. Harry pretended not to understand what she was talking about. He acted as if nothing had happened, said that it was really necessary to get up early for work, and that Catherine himself made up something that is not, and refused to come to visit in the evening, referring to some important family matters. It's clear I disgusted him and he left me. I should never have kissed him. He decided that I am promiscuous, so thought Catherine, sadly sitting at the table over a long, cool cup of tea. Although in the conversation Harry promised that he would call, he never called again. Catherine spent the weekend alone and waiting for a call from Harry, which never came. And on Monday, she came to work in a depressed state. The whole office was buzzing like a beehive. Instead of sitting in their seats, the employees were huddled together and discussing something heatedly. Catherine asked Victoria what was wrong. "Our chief is finally getting married soon." "What chief? You mean Natalie?" Catherine was surprised. As far as she remembered, their boss had a husband and 3 children. What's she got to do with it? "I'm not talking about the head of the department. I'm talking about the chief." "Oh yes, you've never met him yet. We usually only get together as a group at corporate events. He's been away for a long time. He just got back into town. And you don't go to ops. I mean, really, you wouldn't know Garia." "Is that his name? Harry?" That's what Catherine said, just like Harry. "Yes, what's the big deal?" Victoria was surprised. "It's a common name, it happens." Catherine remained silent, but a bad feeling settled in her chest, did not let go. "And what does he look like, this Harry?" Catherine asked. "Gorgeous, young, handsome, everything about him." Victoria shrugged her shoulders. "In short, not our bird of flight." Catherine felt that her heart pounded so hard, as if it was about to burst out. "By the way, when will you introduce us?" suddenly asked Victoria. "All I hear from you is, Harry this, Harry that. I wish I could finally see this beautiful Harry." "I don't think that's gonna happen. I think we broke up with him," Catherine answered, almost crying. Victoria began to calm Catherine, and then suddenly remembered. "Yes, I still have pictures from last year's corporate party. They're in the chief. I'll show them to you." She opened the phone, flipped through the pages, and exclaimed, "Yes, that's right. There he is, Harry." On the phone, which Victoria held in front of Katia's face, was a large full-screen photo of Harry. Next to it were the staff from their office. There was no doubt about it. Harry was the director of the firm where Catherine worked, and he was getting married soon. Catherine worked that day as if in a fog. She always felt that she was about to accidentally bump into Harry in the corridor. so she tried not to leave her office unnecessarily. But she couldn't shove herself off from the gossip. All the females were excitedly discussing the news. You bet, their boss is getting married. This does not happen every day. Catherine began to remember how Harry behaved with her, and now she had it all together in her head. And his unwillingness to make any steps towards her, and why he stopped communicating so abruptly. Catherine's emotions were just bubbling up in her soul. She understood why he hid from her that he would soon get married. Well, not that she understood, but at least she saw what the reason was. But why Harry hid the fact that he was the owner of their firm, Catherine could not find an explanation. Catherine was sure that now that between them nothing will not happen and cannot be. If yesterday she had invented some exculpatory versions and secretly hoped that Harry will still return, now she realized there was no chance. The greater was her surprise when the doorbell rang late at night. She was just about to go to bed and the night call startled her. Looking through the peephole, Catherine saw Harry. She didn't open the door right away. First she was confused. Then she wondered if she should let him in at all. It wasn't until she heard from behind the door, "Catherine, I know you're home. Open up, please. We need to talk. I still won't leave." She realized that she couldn't avoid the conversation. She held herself wary, and Harry, noticing this, said, "You can take offense at me. You have the right. In the meantime, I'll try to explain everything to you. I'll make some coffee." He went into the kitchen as if nothing had happened, or so it seemed to Catherine. When he spoke again, she realized she was wrong. Harry sounded worried. "When we met, I couldn't imagine what would happen next. I just helped a girl in trouble. I didn't realize at the time that this girl would become more than just an acquaintance. And the situation was not favorable for me to tell her about myself in detail. In short, there was no reason for me to start telling her who I was. I didn't have time for that. And then, by the end of the day, I didn't want to. I liked you, and I didn't want you to think of me as a boss. I wanted to be just a guy who liked you. I don't know. I guess I was afraid that you would treat me differently when you found out." Catherine was silent. Harry, meanwhile, poured coffee into cups and sat down across from her, continuing his monologue. "I already had a negative experience when a girl dated me for my status, money, but not for me. I didn't want to step on the same rake again. It's nice to hear that you think I'm a self-serving bitch," insultingly inserted Catherine. "And you did not think that, having learned about the deception, I do not want to communicate with you. And anyway, how were you going to hide it? Sooner or later, we would have crossed paths in the office. I thought about it. I was planning on telling you, but I had another problem. The first one was nothing compared to the first one. And at some point, they both got so intertwined and confusing that I didn't care about the first one anymore." "Yes, a bride and a wedding is a really big problem." Catherine flared up. "Compared to her that you are the boss, and hid it and really nothing at all." "Catherine, all right, scold me. I deserve it. I should have told you everything about the job and the fiancé. But we are all clever in hindsight. Now I understand everything, and I can see where I was wrong and what I should have done and said. But even if it's too late, I still owe you an explanation." "As you wish," shrugged Catherine, slightly crooked. No matter how much she resented Harry, she still wanted to hear his story and understand why he was hiding his fiancée. Harry told her, taking his time, as if it were early evening instead of late night. "Naomi and I have been together for 6 years. Until recently, I've been fine with it. I mean, I thought I was. Even when it turned out that she was attracted to me primarily because of my position, my own company, and my wealth. Naomi began to talk often about marriage, and although I did not plan, and was not sure to the end that she is the person who is one and for life, in the end I let myself be persuaded. I thought it was time to get married anyway. To start a family, Naomi is not the worst option. So what if there is no special love? Thousands of people live like that and nothing. Now I realize I shouldn't have done it. But back then I didn't care. How is it possible without love?" Catherine was surprised. Her story to Harry struck a nerve. "I can't imagine why you should be near a person you don't love." "Well, I can't imagine it now. It didn't matter then. It's time to get married. She's not a bad girl, so why not? It seemed to me that love is more your female theme, and men have everything differently. With these sentiments about love in general do not care. And then I met you, and it turned out to be nothing like I'd imagined. I felt for the first time in my life that I wanted to take care of someone, to protect someone. And I realized what it is when you really want to be together with a person and want to spend your life with them. But what about Naomi? Why did you break up? And this wedding? Catherine said incredulously. The confession that sounded now was sincere. Catherine saw it in Harry's eyes. But to believe him prevented so many buts. That's why I didn't say anything. I wanted to end one relationship before starting another. What kept you from talking to Naomi? Explain everything? That's the thing. Nothing stopped me. I did. I told her the truth, that I'd met someone else. She demanded to know who it was. I did. Naomi took it very negatively. She flatly refused to break up, to move out of the apartment, and in general, organized an armistice. She'd go from pity to conscience to throwing things at me and attacking me. Why did it get to the point where everyone at work thought you were getting married? Did you eventually get over it? No. It's her revenge, you could say. Me, us. For what? What do you think? Well, Naomi called my secretary at work last night, who was on friendly terms, and told her in confidence that we were getting married. Of course, the secretary immediately spread the news around the office. Naomi, of course, didn't know you didn't know who I was. But then, as they say, she got lucky. Victoria told you. How would I know that? Well, Victoria came to my office this afternoon with a scandal. She came to defend you from the scoundrel who played you and left you. Anyway, there you go. Yeah, Victoria's like that. Involuntarily smiled Catherine, imagining how small, fragile Victoria attacks the huge Harry. You're lucky to have a friend. Harry smiled back at her. Catherine fell silent again. Hearing what she had just heard from Harry had turned everything upside down. Even this afternoon, she had thought he was the last scoundrel, but now it turned out that he was even too decent, and that was why he had suffered. There was nothing to stop him from taking advantage of her feelings a long time ago, especially since that night she had taken the initiative and was not going to stop. He didn't even have to do anything to get Catherine. Just let her do something stupid, but he didn't. He wanted to end the previous relationship first before entering into a new one. He didn't have to tell Naomi what kind of girl he liked, but then again, he was honest about it, and that's why they broke up with him. Catherine's mind and soul were going through something unimaginable. She wanted to believe Harry so badly, and she was so afraid she'd get burned again. He must have realized this, because he said, getting up from the table and walking over to her, I promise, no more secrets and no more secrets. I'm sorry. Come here. Soon Catherine and Harry were already kissing, standing in the middle of the kitchen. Katia, I was given an assignment to check out a certain Leslie. It involves circumstances very similar to what you told me about yourself. Only you said you'd already checked it out and it was legit. Are you sure about that? I'm getting a different impression. Victoria and Catherine were sitting at a table in a cafe. It was lunchtime and they had gone out to have a little chat, as they had rarely been able to meet lately. In Victoria's new relationship, everything was so good that there was no time to meet with her friends. She and her boyfriend went out together almost every night. But Catherine was not bored in the evenings. She had something to do. After all, now she was dating Harry. For real, not like before. After that conversation, in which Harry told Catherine everything as it was, all misunderstandings between them disappeared. Yes, at first it was not easy, because Naomi did not want to realize that she had lost such a promising fiancé, and in every way tried to prevent the breakup. Even when she moved out of Mish's apartment, still sometime continued to visit there and rubbed everyone's nerves, including herself. But gradually everything settled down. In the evenings, Catherine and Harry made up for lost time, went to the movies, theaters, and cafes. One day they drove past a building about which Harry said, "Here I studied. This is my institute." Catherine sighed dreamily. "I would also like to become a lawyer. I've been looking at this profession since I've been working in our firm, and I realize more and more, I also want to go and get an education." "So what's it all about?" Harry said excitedly. "I thought you didn't want to study, so I didn't ask. But if that's the case, I'll start studying with you today. We're going to get you ready for admission." That's how it turned out that to Ekaterina's evening classes added to the preparation for university, especially since there were only 6 months left, and Ekaterina was very worried about whether she would have time. Victoria's mention of her stepmother surprised Catherine. "It's so strange that you brought up Leslie. I haven't thought of her in ages, and I wouldn't remember her for the same amount of time. But the other day I thought I ran into her on the street. I was so scared I didn't want to see her. But she, if it was her at all and not just someone similar, also shook me aside like a sick person. And now you remind me of her too. Is there something going on that I need to know about? Not yet. I'm looking into it. My superiors have instructed me to, Victoria answered. What is there to study? Catherine was surprised. That Leslie has already taken everything I had, took it all for herself. And what she couldn't, she just destroyed, like mom's and dad's things in photos. Catherine was saddened by the memories. In the evening, she asked Harry why he was gathering information about her stepmother, and heard in response this story. Recently, a man named Billy came to them for legal help. He was the deputy head of a large company, and his request was so unusual that Harry could not remember anything similar in his practice. Billy asked him to track down the owner of the company he worked for. The owner was a girl named Catherine. The company used to be owned by Catherine's father, and when he died, it turned out that a will had been made stating that the company was to go to his daughter, all of it. How? You're kidding. Catherine shrieked. Daddy's deputy is wrong. It cannot be. Leslie told me that in the will everything goes to her. Harry sighed. And you believed her? Catherine faltered, and Harry continued the story. Catherine's stepmother, Leslie, ran the company until she came of age, since she was her guardian. Billy was sure that the girl knew everything, but now it was obvious that the stepmother had hidden from Catherine that she was the sole owner of her father's business. Moreover, Billy suspects that many other things have been hidden from Catherine in the same way. Perhaps the girl did not realize that the apartment, the bank accounts, the car, and the country house had all been left by her father to his daughter. Harry paused so that Catherine could somehow comprehend what she had heard, and Catherine simply could not believe her ears. How could this be possible? It turns out that Dad's firm belonged to her, and maybe Dad's apartment and everything else. I don't get it. How could Leslie keep this from me? Shouldn't they have told me? That's a question for your guardian. When you were a child, of course, she represented you, and you might not have known. It's strange, though. You were already quite an adult, and there was only one reason Leslie could have kept such important information from you. But more on that later. So Billy thought you knew everything. Harry continued his story. When Catherine turned 18 and was given the right to dispose of her property without any guardians, Leslie's authority automatically ended. In order to continue to run the firm, Leslie now had to provide a power of attorney from Catherine. But of course, Leslie was unable to provide any document. So Billy decided to talk to Catherine in person, and was surprised to find that her phone number was blocked. She did not live at home, and in general, no one knows where the girl had gone. Leslie swore she knew nothing. Moreover, Billy got the impression that she herself was annoyed that Catherine was missing. Billy figured that Leslie would want to get Catherine to sign a general power of attorney so that everything would remain as it was, and Leslie could dispose of all of her dead husband's property instead of his rightful heir. And Billy had no doubt that Leslie would have found a way to convince, intimidate, or trick the inexperienced Catherine. But Catherine had disappeared just after coming of age, and in so doing had confused Leslie's cards. At first, Leslie managed to fool Billy, telling tales that she knew where Catherine was and would soon find her. But as time went on, nothing changed. The situation was complicated by the fact that all work threatened to stand, because it was unclear who the owner, where he is, and who now has the authority to sign documents on behalf of the company. For a while, Leslie was still stalling. She assured Billy that she had filed a police report on Catherine's whereabouts, so Billy waited to see what the results would be. But after 6 months, he realized Leslie was just stalling. Perhaps she was in the meantime looking for Catherine herself. To do what? To hurt her again? He realized there wasn't a day to lose. That's why Billy went to a law firm that was recommended to him by a good friend. He asked to find Catherine, to deal with Leslie's machinations, and if it turned out that Leslie really did something illegal, to pass the information to the police, let them deal with her there. So that's it in a nutshell. I had Victoria gather information on Leslie. She was upset that she didn't double-check your story and took your word for it. She said she should have known you were too young and naive to be fooled. I was, sadly, nodded Catherine, and yet I still want to become a lawyer. Who will take me there with such naivety? For that you and will study at the Institute to be able to understand all these issues. Harry comforted Catherine. Well, now enough about sad things. Let's go to the country, to the nature. When they were already in the car, Harry asked, "Why are you so sad? You should be happy. You're a rich Harris." "I am happy," sadly nodded Catherine. "And I rejoice that I did not know about it before. I don't want you to think that I liked you because of the inheritance." "What are you saying?" smiled Catherine. "I know you just like the way I fell off the porch right in front of you." Catherine was walking home from work. It was dark, and in the alley, she thought someone was following her. She pushed the thought away, and to make it less scary to walk, she dialed Harry's number. Harry saw that Catherine was calling and picked up the phone, but there was silence. He called back, no one answered. Harry felt worried for some reason, and although he was still at work, decided to go to Katia's house to make sure that she was all right. He saw an ambulance at the neighboring house and immediately felt something wrong. When he ran up, he saw Catherine lying on the ground. The medics were leaning over her, and a crowd was already gathering around her. "What happened?" "It's my fiancée." Harry lowered himself to the ground next to the lying Catherine and, feeling spasms coming up to his throat, asked, "Is she alive?" "She's alive, but unconscious," businesslike replied the doctor. "Since the fiancé held transfer to a stretcher, go with us to the hospital." "What happened?" asked Harry, lifting Catherine in his arms and walking with her to the ambulance. "Probably some kind of robbery. Hit on the head with something." The doctor shrugged. "We've already notified the police. They'll take care of it." Lucky she was wearing a hoodie. When the investigator came to Catherine's hospital, Harry was there too. And if Catherine, when asked if she suspected anyone in the attack, answered in the negative, Harry immediately said that he had an option. He told the investigator the story about Leslie. He said that he was going to report her to the police because he had gathered enough evidence that she had fraudulently misappropriated Katia's inheritance. Reissued the real estate to herself. She sold the country house and the car. The firm didn't work out. Billy wouldn't let her do it. But Leslie's greed was unrelenting and pushed her to do something. Most likely, the attack on Catherine was an attempt to get rid of her. Leslie never gave up hope of getting her late husband's inheritance. The investigator asked a lot of questions until Catherine got a headache and had to leave. "Do you really think Leslie did it?" Catherine asked Harry. "Who else would it be? You should know how many interesting things we collected on her. By the way, she didn't just run away from her hometown to come here. It's easier to get lost in the metropolis." "What are you talking about?" Catherine was surprised. "Victoria dug up a lot on your former stepmother. Marriage with your father is not her first and not the second. And you know, each time it turned out so that her husband did not die of his own death, and Leslie ended up inheriting a nice fortune." "Are you saying that, Dad, that the accident wasn't an accident, that the car broke down for a reason?" In horror, whispered Catherine. "I did not want to say anything yet. Let the investigation is all sorted out. Victoria has already given them all the materials. And Leslie just did not calculate that her husband can make a will and not on her. I'm scared, Harry." "Everything's going to be all right now. Don't worry." Harry leaned over and kissed Catherine. "Anyway, come on, get well soon. I miss you so much." "I miss you too." "Yes, do you mind if I move your things back to my place? I don't want to let you live in that apartment anymore. The alleys are dangerous." "Is it just because of the alleys?" Catherine smiled. "Of course, because of them. Not because of love." Harry laughed. He was pleased. He'd been looking for a reason for Catherine to move in with him for a long time, and now everything had worked out, although the occasion was not a pleasant one. A week later, Catherine was discharged from the hospital. Except for a concussion of the brain, she was found nothing terrible. The investigation was active. Soon Leslie was detained. At first she denied and did not confess to anything. She talked to everyone brazenly, defiantly, and felt safe. However, the results of the search conducted at her home, as well as the information that was extracted from her phone, gave the investigation the necessary evidence. Leslie was taken into custody. As for Angelica, of course, she took the position that she knew nothing. She testified that she was not aware of her mother's affairs. She had nothing to show, although the investigator had no doubt. Angelica also did not stay out of her mother's affairs. At the same time, Victoria was engaged in restoring the rights to inheritance, as well as challenging transactions on the sale of property, which on behalf of Catherine made Leslie as her guardian. This process promised to be slow, but Victoria expressed confidence that she would succeed, and Catherine trusted her implicitly. At work, Harry and Catherine tried to hide the fact that they were in a relationship, but there was no hiding the truth, and at one point it all became known. Harry thought it was Victoria who couldn't help herself and told someone, and Catherine, who was confident in her friend, thought that the news, as usual, was spread by Harry's secretary. But as it happened, what could they do about it? Only fend off the constant questions on the subject of the wedding. At one point, Harry got so sick of answering about it that he said, "Soon we'll invite you all." Catherine, who was present at this, blushed. Previously, she and Harry did not discuss the topic of the wedding, although she, of course, dreamed about it, like any girl. That same evening, Harry said, "If you promise people, you'll have to fulfill it. Let's go ring shopping. Do you agree?" Catherine saw that he was embarrassed, so she did not begin to nag and demand a normal human proposal of marriage in heart, but simply said yes, and they went to the jewelry store. Well, and on his return, Harry still made a proposal to Catherine, as it is supposed to do, with getting on his knee, with the obligatory question, and with putting a ring on her finger. While preparations for the wedding were being made, the date set, the dress chosen, and other pleasant troubles, Leslie's trial took place. Managed to prove that she organized a car accident, which killed her ex-husband, Catherine's father, and the attack on Catherine herself was also organized by Leslie. Therefore, she got a decent sentence and went to serve her time in a colony somewhere in the Urals. Catherine cried for a long time when it turned out that his father died through no fault of his own, but because of the greed of his wife. Harry with difficulty managed to calm and comfort his bride. And when the wedding of Catherine and Harry, his parents made Catherine the best gift. They said that they would try to become a mom and dad for Catherine, which she was deprived of. Of course, no one can replace the parents, but they promised Catherine that they would give her their love and warmth as Katina's real parents would. And Catherine again cried for a long time, but already from happiness. And immediately after the wedding, Catherine waited for another pleasant event. She was enrolled in the institute. She chose a part-time department so that you can continue to work, because she did not want to sit on her husband's neck, although he is very even did not object. But the option that Harry would work, and she idle, Catherine did not even consider. She and her father did not bring up like that, and the example of idle stepmother all the time stood in front of her eyes. And after all, she, as a future lawyer, had to start gaining practical experience. Except that Catherine now worked not with Harry and in his own firm, where she finally became a full-fledged owner. Catherine consulted with her husband and acted wisely. Appointed Director Billy herself came to work at the position for beginners, to learn the whole process from the very bottom. Victoria soon got married, which Catherine was very happy about. It remains to tell how Angelica's fate turned out. No way. She quickly forgot about her mother. She was not interested in going on dates as far as the Urals. She was expelled from the institute long ago for failing grades. Angelica made an attempt to apply for a job with Catherine in the firm, but she was not allowed to go further than the threshold. The last thing that Catherine heard about Angelica is that her former half-sister works somewhere as a waitress, as Catherine herself once did. Well, any honest work is honorable, Catherine thought, and she could only wish that Angelica would not get in the way of any Max.